Okay, welcome to the meeting of the Orangetown Town Board. Would the town clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Dennis Troy. Councilman Tom Divany.
Here.
Councilman Paul Valentine.
Here.
Councilman Jerry Batari. Here. Supervisor Chris Day.
Here. Would Esther Baylor please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Hang on, she's coming. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so first to start off with, we received, for those of you who are here for this matter, we received this afternoon a letter from the applicant regarding the, what's the call? Ryerson Farms proposal, and they've withdrawn their petition for the property. So there is nothing for us to hear in that public hearing, so we will simply be closing it out. It's over. I know it's anticlimactic, but it's still a climax of some sort. So we're going to proceed with the meeting. If anyone was here for that, there's nothing to hear on it. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was, there's no questions right now. It's over. The thing's done. They had a hearing once already, continued to this date, and they've decided based on feedback from the public that they're going to withdraw. So I guess there's no dramatic moment, but that's what it is. Moving on to our announcements, or the rest of our announcements. Pearl River Farmers Market last week had a slight issue with vendors, but we'll be back again next week, every Sunday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Through November 24th on North William Street in Pearl River. The Tappan Players at the Barn, a local theater group performing at the Manse Barn in Tappan, will be opening this weekend. The production is called 20th Century, a comedy, and the shows are Saturday, October 5th at 8 p.m. and Sunday, October 6th at 3 p.m. General admission is $18. Seniors and children under 12 are $10. There has now been installed on town property at the Cam Shanks Museum behind the Orangeburg Library a flag collection box for tattered American flags to be disposed of in a respectful manner, placed courtesy of the Raymond DiMiola VFW Post 1615 of Blauvelt. If you have a damaged flag, don't throw it in the trash, bring it there, and they'll dispose of it properly. Pearl River Day is coming up October 12th, Saturday, Central Avenue from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. We have a free shredding event hosted by our town clerk, Rosanna Sfragia. They will be also accepting non-perishable goods or cash donations for people to people. This is from October 19th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Last time there was a substantial line, so get there, bring your stuff. There is a limit of 3 boxes per and is not commercial for your business, it's for personal stuff. Some other announcements, we have a continuation of a public hearing regarding a requested zone change on 576 Route 303 on October 22nd at 7:50 p.m. We have our normal hearing for the 1-year contract for the Blauvelt Fire Protection District scheduled for October 22nd at 8 p.m. We have another hearing, annual hearing for our Orangeburg, South Orangetown area, Orangetown Library Districts for funding related to the budget process, also on 10/22 at 8:10 p.m. Then we have the preliminary budget hearing for the 2020 budget, same date at 8:20 p.m. to 10/22. Friday, November 8th, thanks to we've had this year is our first year of our Military Veterans Banner Program. It's been a great success, taken off really well, and raised money, which is allowing us to host a Holiday for Heroes brunch on November 8th for veterans from Orangetown. That'll be at the Tappan Firehouse across the street on Western Highway from Homes for Heroes, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Friday, November 8th. No charge for our veterans. Continuation of public hearing. That will be the final hearing on the preliminary and adopted budget on November 12th at 8 p.m. for 2020. Also a continuation of the public hearing for the proposed TOD zone ordinance for Pearl River will be on the 19th of November at 8 o'clock p.m. We have do you want to do the?
They're not here yet.
No, we'll skip through that.
Yeah, we'll go back to it
We'll
when
come
the
back.
family gets there.
Okay. There is, if you look at your agenda, is a presentation for our dedication of Old Orangeburg Road as Patrick McGovern Drive. The family's not here yet, so we're going to come back to that. Next, the way this works for those of you who are not normally here is we go through the agenda, workshop it, which means discuss it, and take comments amongst the board for the items on the agenda. Let's go back to the beginning and take our public comment, which is 3 minutes per person, and then we proceed with it. If we get to a point where a hearing was scheduled, we'll stop that process, start the public hearing, and go. We can't do any public hearing before the time it's scheduled for legally. Okay, so workshopping here. Our first item on the agenda is install the memorial, naming the blue sign to name Old Orangeburg Road, Patrick McGovern Drive. And we will go through that when we do the presentations. Next, we have resolution to open a public hearing regarding a proposed local law for community choice aggregation. That's where we as a town retrograde or take back the power from New York State to set the default power supplier for residents of the town. Those people who don't have a side power agreement, which they've signed, will default to the one we choose, which will be a both green and cheaper option. It should save money for folks in the town. And it doesn't affect anyone who's already signed on to a specific supplier. Then we have a resolution to close the public hearing on that subject. Resolution to designate the town board as lead agency pursuant to SECRA. And a resolution to adopt, assuming we do want to, that law for the town code regarding community choice aggregation. I'll also add that Clarkstown just adopted theirs, I think, last week or the week before on this, and every town is looking to do it to maximize the purchasing power. Then we will be authorizing, assuming, again, that last one passes on item 7. Item 8 will be designating Jewel Assets as the Community Choice Aggregation Program Administrator, and they will then find their license through the state, and they will find the lower cost provider. We then have a public hearing to open regarding the New York State Unified Solar Permit to speed up and smooth out applications for solar permits in our town. I think there was some changes that's going to require us to continue that. If not, you want to nod if that's correct, Rob? All right. You can also talk too.
That's correct, yeah. There
Give me
was, based on the county planning comments, Barbara Gianta, who's working on the law, and Jane Slavin, they just have to make a few changes, and we'll represent it. So we'll start the public hearing and then continue it.
Great. So then we have a continuation motion on 10 and 11. We go straight to the next hearing on adopting the lot and bulk controls amendment for PAC developments. It's a lot of public hearings tonight. Then we have the secret designation. I want to say that we missed, I clicked twice. Then continue close, then secret designation, and then adopting, should we so choose, that law, if amended, if not. Then we have the public hearing, what was scheduled for the zone change request for Ryerson Estates. Again, for those of you who've walked in since I first announced it, as of this afternoon, we received it this afternoon and put it on social media. The applicant has withdrawn his application, therefore the board has nothing to consider before it anymore in the subject. So we'll be closing that public hearing out, and it's done and not happening. Then we have the resolution to close it, that was open, or continue and then close for 16. And then another public hearing, should be a quick one for a property maintenance issue at Haran Place in Tapan to authorize the town building department to hire someone to get that property fixed for the neighbors who have been dealing with it for quite some time. Then to continue close it, and then to approve or deny it, not both. Then we have to set a public hearing. The Habor Historical Area Board of Review has set a proposed changes to the code that they want to see heard out by the public and by the board. So they will be setting the public hearing for that on November 12th at 8:10 p.m.
I just, if I may?
You may.
I just got a text actually from Dennis Michaels, who is at a Habor meeting right now, and they have a meeting on November 12th. So they'd asked that that be November 19th.
That is fine by me. We will make that November 19th. I'm going to make a note. So when we get to it, I remember to do it. Okay. All right, the next item is a hold harmless for Patrick and Denise Lenahan and Pearl River. This is a item that's on a town easement in their property, so it makes us not be liable. 22, lend assistance for South Orangetown Day, which is an announcement that we missed. Also, along with Pearl River Day, we have South Orangetown Day for the past several years now. That's on Saturday, October 19th, over at the Manse Barn or the lawn of the Manse Barn in Tappan. So this is a lend assistance for that. Then lend assistance on number 23 for the Mickey Sullivan 5K in Pearl River on 10/13. Then we have to redesignate the section of South William Street that had been named or secondarily named Mel Liebman Plaza. That time expired on that signage, so we need to redesignate it and extend it for the maximum time of 5 more years through 10/24. I want to commend a resident who kept calling the radio station to remind me about it, and he noticed that the blue signs went down. Resolution to award bid for the demolition of the building structures on Chief Bill Harris Way and Old Orangeburg Road. As you guys know, we've been dealing with sort of trying to nibble away at the stuff around the edges of RPC property. These are the three abandoned and unsafe structures at the corner of Chief Bill Harris Way and Old Orangeburg Road, that where we would hopefully be in the near term, or near to midterm, I guess, straightening that road out and creating intersection with 3rd Avenue. We tried to get the fire departments to do it for free and do training on it, but they're too structurally unsound for that. So luckily, there was not much in the way of hazardous stuff in those buildings. So we are able, the bid, lowest qualified bidder was $46,500 to take down all 3 of those structures and bring it down to ground level. Questions on that one? Yeah, that was much better price than we expected, to be honest, but got lucky. Resolution to accept documents for the town clerk's office, just some things that were sent in, we have to formally accept. Building department, a resolution to appoint Jane Slavin as director of OBZPAE. Permanent, she passed the test and is now up for permanent appointment, effective 10/2. Then the last item is the pay vouchers, and then adjournment. Any questions on the agenda, folks out the dais?
No.
As you see, is the family here for?
Nope.
No, okay, we'll get back to that, that's fine. All right, so we're going to go ahead and open for public comment. Again, for those of you who are not normally here, public comment is on any topic you wish. It is 3 minutes per speaker. If you hit the 3-minute timer, which will be on that buzzer up to the side there, where's my little remote? Hold on. Okay. When that hits 0, it'll ding. When it dings, please stop speaking. You don't have to stop mid-word, but if you could wrap up your sentence with as few semicolons as possible, it would be greatly appreciated. There are no back and forth discussions unless something is completely out of order, where there's just inappropriate stuff going on, or it's just a very basic question that will fix everyone's questions for the night. We're not going to jump in the middle. And after you conclude, we respond to everything at the end of the public comment session once it's closed. So it's just 3 minutes. We have a sign in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and then I'll open it up for anyone who else wants to speak. So first we have legislator Nancy Lohogan of Orangetown.
Good evening. Hello,
Hi.
Town Board and Supervisor Day. Just a couple of brief comments. While I do not know why the applicant pulled out of the original application for the Ryerson, I believe it was called, parcel, I would like to say that I am very proud of the Greenbush Neighborhood Association for all their efforts over the last few days in fighting that application and in fighting against the downzoning. And I would like to say that I personally and many others do not support any downzoning in the town of Orangetown. Now, that being said, I have some concerns about this proposed local law having to do with the Planned Adult Community Zoning, the PAC. And I would ask that the board please take some time to seriously consider these changes. They concern me. First of all, what's online is different than what was sitting out there on the table. So there's 2 different versions of this local law. The one that I got off online did not have something about 1.25, which someone here in the audience, which we got it on the table out front, it said 1.25. So I don't know if that's legitimate or not, but there are 2 different versions of this law. One that's online and one that's out there in the lobby. So that's a concern. The concern that the board, with a supermajority vote, can decide it sounds like, can decide the minimum lot area, can decide that maximum floor ratio, and can decide the maximum density just by a vote here. And removing those requirements from the current law is of great concern to me. So I wanted to be on the record as stating that, and I hope that the board will reconsider that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Michael Hogan of Orangetown, travel in pairs.
Good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the board. Thank you for welcoming us this evening. My name is Michael Hogan. I'm a resident of South Nyack and chairman of the Orangetown Democratic Committee. My family's been here in Orangetown since 1953, and I noted earlier in the day that the population of Orangetown was about 90,000 at that time. Today, it's 328,000. And I'm speaking specifically and generally tonight, or specifically about overdevelopment. And we appreciate the fact that the Ryerson parcel is off the table for now. But our concern is, and the Orangetown Democratic Committee voted unanimously to oppose that particular development and downzoning. And we were looking, and we've been looking at all kinds of resources here in Rockland County. Rockland County now has a population of 328,000 people. If we continue on this vector, we will have about 360,000 people by 2030. We do not have the resources to handle a population growth much more than that. We don't have the water, we don't have the utilities, we don't have the infrastructure. This is not about who's moving and who's downzoning. It's a matter of pure capacity. We are the third most dense county in New York, outside of New York City. And those of you, like myself, who commute, you know what the roads are like. There is just not the capacity. We don't believe that there is water capacity for a population significantly larger than it is today. So we urge that the town of Orangetown be vigilant with respect to downzoning and development. We know we have the Nyack College property, which we do not know what the fate of that will be, but it certainly is very attractive to major developers, and we have to be very careful about that. I'd like the board to know, and all of our citizens to know, that the Orangetown Democrats, the Progressive Democrats, stand side by side with our brothers and sisters and others here in Orangetown in fighting overdevelopment. We recognize, regardless of who's doing it, that it is unsustainable. We've been on record opposing Patrick Farm, the desal plant, and other issues that are related to overdevelopment. And we certainly, and we took a very strong stand against Pascack Ridge, and will continue to do so. And we thank you very much for your support here in Orangetown, and you can look to us for allies. Thank you.
Thank you. Just, again, just since it's a factual issue here,
No, let them finish.
I think it's important, if we're going to talk about demographics, I mean, you put the wrong population of the town of Orangetown. We'll wait till the end, that's fine.
Hold on, I'd just like to, is the McGovern family here now? All right, I'd like,
As soon as they get here, we'll break it.
they're here, right here.
They are, okay. So
All right.
we,
Let's get them up here.
let's hit pause on public comment.
We're gonna,
Need a motion for that?
yeah, I'm gonna,
Move to continue,
motion to
suspend public comment.
All right.
All right, second from Councilman Troy, all in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
All right, and then we're going to go back to the presentations again. This is an issue that Councilman Divney brought to us to rename this street Old Orangeburg Road, and the family's now here for P.O. Thomas McGovern, so I'm going to turn over the floor to Councilman Divney.
All right, can the McGovern family please come up?
We're going to get back to public comment. We're going to do the ceremony first.
Should I go up there, yeah?
Yeah, you go to the podium,
Yeah.
Tom, probably better.
Get all the McGoverns up.
You folks can come up.
And I'm just going to do the resolution, and if anyone wants to speak, feel free. Patrick Thomas McGovern, I'm just going to start with what I know, and then we'll do the proclamation. Went to St. Margaret's, went to Pearl River High School, worked as an officer in the city for 19 years.
Yes.
And after 9/11, was at the pile down at the trade centers for 3 months. He recently passed away. His family's been here forever. Salt of the earth people, and I thought the greatest way we can honor Pat McGovern is to name Old Orangeburg Road in his honor. And I selected that because, if you don't know, Pat's father was very instrumental in the GAA. Pete coaches at the world-class soccer facility, and I thought that was a great place to name it, and I'll just read the proclamation. Whereas New York City police officer Patrick Thomas McGovern served 19 years with the NYPD and was assigned to the 49th precinct. Whereas New York City police officer Patrick Thomas McGovern responded on September 11, 2001 to the World Trade Center and worked on the rescue and recovery efforts in Lower Manhattan for the next 3 months. Whereas police officer Patrick Thomas McGovern was a longtime Orangetown resident who graduated from St. Margaret's School and Pearl River High School. Whereas police officer Patrick Thomas McGovern was a valued member of the Orangetown community, a family man, and a trusted and valued friend to all. Whereas police officer Patrick Thomas McGovern passed away in 2009 after a 2-year battle with cancer tied to his service as a first responder in the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. Whereas, in appreciation of police officer Patrick Thomas McGovern's fearless sacrifice, the town of Orangetown desires to honor our fallen hero. Whereas, on the first day of October 2019, the town board hereby wishes to designate Old Orangeburg Road, Orangeburg, New York, in police officer Patrick Thomas McGovern's honor with the intention of installing nearby memorial street signs to signify this dedication. Now for be resolved that this is Chris signs it. I, Chris Day, supervisor of the town of Orangetown on the first day of October 2019, on behalf of the town board, do recognize our fallen hero, Patrick Thomas McGovern, for his bravery and service to our country, and hereby designate Old Orangeburg Road, Orangeburg, New York, as Patrick Thomas McGovern Drive. And witness...
I know you guys have a lot to do, so I'll be very brief with my comments. First of all, I would like to thank the Orangetown Board, Supervisor Day, the Orangetown PBA, and all the other people who had their hands in this. We do appreciate it. Thank you. My brother was a very unique person, very special not only to us, but for people on the outside. My brother was one of those guys that would, if you need help, he was there. And that was something that, you know, help keeps his spirit alive. To know, just to be in that spot, it does have a meaning to my family. Like Tom said before, my dad was very instrumental in getting the GAA where it is today. If you knew the background of that story, there were 5, 6 guys that put their mortgages on the line without telling their wives. So you kind of think about that. Very brave men, I tell you. But my father was very instrumental with that. Also, myself, my brother Jimmy, and my brother Pat, we went through the OMM program there, so to see what the kids get to play on today compared to what we played on is great for the kids of the town in Orangetown. And we also played in the Rockland GAA as well. So the placement there to really, you know, to remember my brother and to really keep the spirit going, and to remind people of, you know, his dedication to his job and helping others. Hopefully that'll keep going with the people that drive by. So again, thank you, and thank you all. Okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Councilman Divney, when you get up here, do you want to move the motion to designate it now while they're still here? Recognize a motion from Councilman Divney.
All right, movement to name Old Orangeburg Road Patrick Thomas McGovern Drive.
Is there a second from Councilman Troy? I wish to unanimously second that as a board.
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Thank you again for coming in. Just to say, we're gonna have little fights in this meeting and in the next meetings. That's what we're all here for. So we may disagree on a lot of stuff and say nasty names to each other sometimes, but folks like that bring us together as a community, as a country. And I think we all need to remember that, especially if we're in a contentious discussion about what the future of a town is. Think about the people who lay down their lives for us as a nation and as humans. All right, I'm gonna move us back into public comment. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Going back to the scheduled public comment, people who signed in, we have Susan Nemesdi of Palisades.
Hi, yes, good evening. I'm Susan Nemesti of Palisades. At your last board meeting, Rick Tannenbaum updated you on the pending sale of the H&A property in Palisades, and some of the board members brought up the possibility of revoking the zone change. I just wanted to emphasize that the community was very much in favor of that zone change and very much aware that H&A was dumping their real estate investments worldwide. And while we were hoping that this would not be one of them, we feel the zone change, along with the restrictions placed on the property with the help of Supervisor Day and Attorney Magrino, would allow the property to be marketed for the use that the community strongly supports. I don't think that reprimanding H&A at this point is in the town's advantage, and it's more important to try to attract a buyer that would continue its use as the hotel conference center or something similar. So I understand I watched, the last meeting, and I understand, that they weren't very truthful when they wanted that zone change. But at the same time, slapping them on the wrist right now isn't going to do us any good. I think we need to find a buyer that can continue that use or something similar. So, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Understood.
Then we have Carol Baxter of Palisades.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and the Town Board. My name is Carol Baxter from Palisades, and I'm actually going to say a lot that Susan said, so I'll keep mine brief. I, too, was not at the last meeting, but I know there was discussion about possibly reversing the zone change from LO to OP. This change was very important, and we appreciated the town working with us, the community, on this, because H&A and IBM before them used the property as a hotel. Whether or not they knew it, they were doing it legally or not legally, they were doing it. And I think it was to supplement times when it was slow at the conference center. The hotel use supplemented them so they could stay there. When H&A found out that they couldn't have a hotel there legally, they did come before you. And we were suspicious of course, and as Susan says, that H&A International was unloading properties left and right. So eventually, we know at some point it was going to be sold. But in the meantime, while H&A is still there, they needed to have the possibility of being successful, and that meant having a hotel. And hopefully for the next person that comes in, since we don't know who that will be yet, we wanted them to provide them every opportunity to be successful in that property, which is harmonious to the community, and it's a low impact to the community. We really like the property the way it's used now. So since we don't have definitives on the future use of H&A, I hope that we can all work together to support, and you'll help support the use of this property the way it's used now, and to protect the property and to also give the community the peace of mind that it could be used the way it is right now, which I think is a win-win for the town, and it's a win-win for us as well. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Carol. Next, we have Esther Baylor of Spark Hill. Hey, so before you start, Matt or Anthony, I'm getting word that we're not currently broadcasting on Verizon. If you can check into that, we're not broadcasting live on Verizon at least. So, Esther, go ahead.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Board members. My name is Esther Ann Baitler for the record, and I'm a very unique consumer who lives in Spark Hill. Tonight, I would like to address all of you on Barbara, who is retiring from the town attorney's office. She is a dynamo. She really makes the time to talk to me and answer questions. I really will miss her deeply. She's been a real dedicated, hard-working person. And I hope you'll all recognize that. The other thing, Chris, October 8th you mentioned, the Jewish holiday, Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur.
What's on October 8th that I mentioned?
It starts properly at 6.
Yeah, I think you said the 18th.
18th is the,
And it ends on the 9th
yes.
at 8:15.
We don't have any meetings scheduled that day.
Well, you mentioned something, and that's why
I must have misspoke.
I just want you guys to know that I want to wish Barbara the best of luck in her retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Why is this not stopping? There we go. Tom Kleiner, Spark Hill.
Supervisor Day, members of the board, Tom Kleiner, Spark Hill, former supervisor running for that position. A couple of items that are going to be part of the budget hearings, but I just thought I would mention them here now in anticipation of that. The first is the in the supervisor's budget, the proposed closing of the Broadacres 9-hole golf course on the Rockland Psychiatric Center campus. When we, the town board, with Dennis on the board as well, purchased Rockland Psych in 2003, we got 348 acres of land. Some of it good, some of it not so good. That's why the Chase Data Center that's going in now is a great use that will benefit the community taking all those buildings down. But one of the nice amenities was the 9-hole course at Broadacres. And obviously, as has been pointed out by this and prior boards, there have been a lot of financial issues with regard to keeping that course afloat. However, it is well used and appreciated by many in Orangetown who use that course instead of Blue Hill, which is a different kind of golf course. And even though Blue Hill could obviously accommodate that use, I would hope that the board could find some additional savings someplace in the budget, which I know is always difficult to maintain that course and keep it open. One of the areas that is possible is the proposal for the salaries for elected officials. When I was in office, the supervisor's salary started at $60,000. We made incremental changes, we being the board, through the years to bring that up to a more respectable level. But it was incremental. The $40,000 increase for the supervisor's salary and the other increases for clerk and highway superintendent, given what we're trying to achieve with the budget, keeping it under the tax cap and keeping Broadacres open, is, I believe, excessive at this time and should be considered more moderately given those constraints. And finally, let me just say one quick word, because I don't believe there'll be further public comment in Ryerson. The neighbors, the Greenbush Road Coalition, those who came out and spoke about this property, who are concerned about their quality of life in Blauvelt and Orangeburg, deserve credit for whatever reason the developer pulled this proposal. I am concerned that the developer obviously can come back in at any time. He has made various threats in other communities holding the possible religious use excuse that the board will be lulled into making his own change against its better interests, against the comprehensive plan, against the Route 303 Sustainable Development Study. And I will hope that this board or any future board would have the courage to stand up to those threats. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and just to dovetail off of Mr. Kleiner's statement, for those, it looks like there's a couple more people here who got here late. The applicant did withdraw his application. The hearing will not be proceeding, so, and it's done. Obviously, everyone has a right to apply, but I see new faces since I last said it. Anyone who is not signed in who would like to speak? Mike Mandel of Pearl River.
Yeah, good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the town board. For the record, Michael Mandel of Pearl River. I know we have a golf course there that's losing a lot of money. We do have a 27-hole golf course, Blue Hill, which is making money. We have to look at what we have to cut down on. There's a lot of people in this town don't play golf. I'm one of them. But going back to the Ryerson project, when we talk about overdevelopment or we talk about high-density housing, the last speaker didn't appear to go along with the comprehensive plan when something was proposed, 650 units proposed in the Rockland Psychiatric Site with Hovanian, which never came through. The workforce housing, which was proposed to be on MFR zones, multi-family residences, which there were only 9 in Orangetown, all of which were currently built on. So it'd have to be new ones, and they were targeting downtown Pearl River as one of these areas. And it wasn't for regular families, this was also working class families. Were they talking about lower income families to change the demographics of the town? That was opposed that night. I was the first speaker that night with 400 to 500 people in this place who were all opposed to it. So if we're going to start talking things that are becoming political, which we shouldn't be talking about, I just think that should all be out there in the open. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, former legislator John Murphy is here, I see. Sorry, Eileen, you'll be next. Poorly choice of seats there.
My name is John Murphy. I've lived in Pearl River since 1961. And for 50 of the years I've been living in that town, I have had a mission. One of that mission is to provide appropriate housing for people with special needs. That's what I've done for 50 years. Now, the latest and fastest growing people with special needs are our elderly. Our population is living much longer lives with not necessarily the finances and the good health that they deserve and need. They need affordable housing in a community that provides them to exist without an automobile. You have a project going on in downtown Pearl River in the business area which meets that criteria. And I'm asking you to give your most serious positive consideration to approving the project. I will tell you that we have a population not only growing older, not only being able to afford the new cost of living, but many of them are on the edge of Alzheimer's. That's one of my specialties. They need a safe place that they can afford, not assisted living and not the very expensive things. This is a model you should embrace. It's the most affordable housing for senior citizens in a commercial district. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We are, I'm going to just take a pulse of the board here. We're far enough along to go start the public hearings, but we're not required to start them yet. Do we want to continue public comment, or do we want to go jump over the public hearings? Let's show of hands. Who else wants to speak in public comment specifically, the broader topics? 1, 2, 3. Okay. You could speak now in public comment. There's nothing to hear anymore because the petition was withdrawn. We only have a hearing when there's a proposal. The proposal's gone now, so we're going to be done. If you do want to talk, I'm going to let me finish. If you have a thing you want to say about the now non-existent proposal, or about that property broadly speaking, or about a nice recipe you found, or about some choices of college for your kids or something, now's the time, because there is not going to be, given that we found after the agenda was printed and distributed, We received a withdrawal of the application. There is nothing to have a hearing on anymore. If they had stayed here and did not withdraw it, we would continue the hearing. Even if we didn't plan on voting for it, we'd have to have the hearing, but it's gone. So anyone talking about that property or just anything under the sun other than community choice aggregation, the three topics I think we have hearings on are now community choice aggregation, the solar panels, right? Solar permit, which is going to be continued anyway, the lot and bulk controls for PAC developments, and the property maintenance one that is, I imagine there may be a neighbor here who wants to say that it's an awful property.
So you could speak now.
So now would be the time to speak on
All
that.
right, Eileen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Eileen, you're going to go next. We're going to continue the public comment period and allow for the usual public comment.
Good evening, members of the board. I'd like to say a few comments about the 2020 budget. Also, I am concerned about the increases for the elected officials and the department heads. I think we should rethink those numbers because I'm a senior. I want to be able to afford to live in my own home. And right now, that's becoming harder and harder because my school taxes went up almost $600. And I live on Social Security. I have no pension, nothing like that. And it's a hardship right now. And to see a $40,000 increase for the supervisor's position, very few people are getting that in the real world. Secondly, I'd like to know who the cameras are that are here today, who they are and who they represent. We have 2 cameras here, this gentleman over here. I have no idea who he is or why he's even here tonight. And I think we should know. This gentleman, and I believe there was a camera in the back, he might have left. Somebody spoke about the population growth in Rockland County. Well, we can look at one area, it's called Ramapo. I believe half of the population of the county is coming out of Ramapo, and maybe that's where Nancy Lowe Hogan should be in trying to control that growth in some way possible. Also, the proposed project that was for 303, that was spot zoning, no matter how you look at it. You look up the definition of spot zoning, perfectly describe that one area. We have in this town challenges to our master plan coming up. The master plan we have now, I believe, was done maybe in the 1990s. It's outdated, and also the town codes are outdated. I've said this numerous times to the board. You have to sit down, form a committee, and establish new land zoning changes or whatever that are compatible to how we want Orangetown to grow. I don't want to grow like Clarkstown. I don't want to keep up with Clarkstown, who has double our population, double our taxes, and double the issues. Orangetown has always been conservative in growth. We have a great community. We have colleges. We have senior housing. We have a lot to offer anybody in Orangetown. But I know more and more people that are packing their bags. They have spent 30, 40 years here in Orangetown. I'm here for like 46 years. They're packing their bags, and they're going away from their families because they cannot afford it. And even if they can afford it, they don't want to pay $30,000, $40,000 a year in real estate taxes. It's becoming immoral. And to see a $40,000, I mean, Supervisor Kleiner might be happy if he wins because that's going to be his new salary. I don't know. And the highway superintendent, to get another pay raise, maybe $9,000. The real world, these people don't even have the cost of commuting. They don't commute. They don't do anything. The real world out there is we don't get $40,000 a year pay raises.
Thank you, Eileen. 70 plus million. 70 plus million. All right, any other hands? Yes.
I want to know who the cameras are.
My name is Pascal Atkinson, and
I'm sorry?
I live in Piermont.
It's not really,
You don't have to respond.
it's not relevant. You're allowed to record in a public area. I'm sorry, Eileen. It's just, they're allowed to. So if he wants to step up for a second to the podium in public comment and say who he is, that's fine. If not, that's also fine. But it's your turn either way. Sorry. I mean, in the normal course of public comment.
Thank you
Go
to the
ahead.
board.
Just if you could please read your name. If I don't call you by name, please read your name into the record before we.
My name is Vanessa Lappins. I live in Blauvelt. Hello to the board and Chris Day, Supervisor. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm speaking about the Ryerson Farms matter and the MFR zone change, also known as the dinosaur parcel. First of all, I want to thank my neighbors who collected over 541 signatures in under 72 hours to oppose this change. This project was just one in a troubling series of projects that reflect a trend to disregard the maintenance of the character of the town that we live in. We implore the town to vigorously look at ways to inform and consult with their constituents on how these large parcels should be developed, especially when there is a zoning change or a variance sought, or when the plan itself has recommended preservation. The current process, which pits well-resourced developers against a small group of neighbors in a radius, and the rest of us find out by word of mouth, isn't really the way to do development in this town. And I hope that you'll look at changing the way the notification process is done, take another look at the master plan, and bring the community into the process to help preserve the character of the town that we love. Thank you.
Thank you. Other folks for public comment? Yes.
I'm Brendan Cahill from Senator Carlucci's office. The senator wrote a letter to the supervisor and the board about the Ryerson project. Of course, that point's moot now. So just if the application does come back, hope that we're able to preserve our suburban characteristics, take into consideration any environmental impacts, and of course the historical aspect of it is something that should be carefully examined. But again, since it's gone, won't go through the entire letter, but thank you for hearing our comments.
Thank you for coming in. I hope you're getting overtime for this. Yes.
Can I speak from here?
No, unfortunately, because it won't be recorded then. I'm sorry. I wouldn't make you walk if I didn't have to. Again, I apologize for making you walk up there.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. I really appreciate the opportunity. My name is Jocelyn DiCrescenzo, and I live in Valley Cottage in Clarkstown. And I sort of have to dispute what Ms. Larkin said. I don't think anybody's trying to catch up to our town in any way, shape, or form. I was really concerned about the Ryerson property. I'm concerned about overdevelopment in Rockland County, in all of Rockland County. We are connected. We are all connected. One town abuts another. We have borders that we don't have boundaries, for instance, that are shown on a map necessarily. And I think we have to look at the greater plan for Rockland County as a county rather than just individual villages and municipalities and towns. We all have to be on the same page because Rockland County has finite resources. We have finite water. We're not part of any other system where we can get extra water. So when United Water Suez signs off on any project, which they're obligated to do, it means that water is being taken away from the entire community of Rockland County people. So the resources are really, really important, and protecting the nature and quality of how people are living in Rockland County. This is why we moved to Rockland County. I've been in Rockland County for 60 years. And I love Rockland County, and I think it really needs to be protected. Now, the Ryerson property proposal is off the table right now. However, that doesn't mean that your responsibility to make sure that downzoning isn't given to projects like this is still there. So you still are morally responsible and obligated to protect the town of Orangetown from overdevelopment, and also to protect a unique place in Orangetown, in Blauvelt, that's really very special with the dinosaur tracks. It's remarkable. And I hope there are ways that the town can come together with other towns perhaps and realize that the Rockland County Planning Board has to encompass all of Rockland County. We are all neighbors, and this is the most important thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Everyone's been pretty good with the timer. Yes, Elaine, you have your hand up? Whenever you're ready.
So here we are again. I wanted to start by saying that the last time I was here, I made a connection between Teresa Kenny and the I made a connection between Teresa Kenny and the Ryerson Farm LLC. I had no reason to doubt what was on record at the New York State Division of Corporations. And because I know Teresa Kenny personally, I called her and we spoke, and I was quite surprised to learn that Mr. Brodsky had used her name and address to form that LLC without her permission. And for making that connection, I wanted to publicly acknowledge that that was the information that I found out. But, you know, on that topic of things that aren't necessarily right, one of your appointed ACA board members, who is a local representative for the Republican Party, was touting a very fear-mongering approach to the Ryerson proposal, saying, oh, it was going to protect Orangetown from a school or a religious institution. But she's also was the realtor who stands to profit from this development. If that makes your head spin, it should, because it made mine spin. And it didn't feel good. So I wanted to make sure that that was on record, that that kind of behavior should be admonished from an appointed member of our Land Use Board. But I am excited to share something positive, and that is that I've learned that the Trust for Public Land has offered to coordinate a conservation effort for our precious Blauvelt dinosaur site. If the landowners, who are also Orangetown residents raising their families, will help with or agree to cooperate, the Trust is going to help with grants and coordinate local, state, and county funds to acquire this exciting site. Maybe it'll be called the Rathmaguri Park or the Cooney Park. But the point is, they now have an exciting opportunity to be the first step in something really special for Orangetown, because it seems our history, you know, rich in history is our motto, begins long before the Revolutionary War. The county open space resolution just agreed to open funding in 2020 for acquisition. And that's not a guarantee, I understand, but this parcel has been identified as one to be acquired from the original open space program that County Executive Vanderhoff put into place. And another exciting thing is the Hudson Valley Field Station. If you haven't seen it, everybody should go take a look at it at the end of the Piermont Pier. It was set up by Lamont Dougherty, and their goal is to motivate the education of young people in the field of geosciences. And I can't think of a more perfect complement than a hands-on exhibit at the Blauvelt dinosaur site that has been called a, quote, window into our history of New York from more than 200 million years ago. So I had a few other things I wanted to say, but since I wasn't allotted the 5 minutes that I thought I was going to be allotted for a public meeting that was on the record, I guess I won't be able to do that. But I hope you will be open-minded to an open space conservation effort. And I know that the new supervisors who are candidates have already expressed that they will be.
Yes. Okay, is there anyone else for public comment, general public comment? Right here. Yes, Mr. Armaniaco.
Supervisor Day, council members, Victor Armaniaco, 577 Greenbush Road. Just have a quick statement. I purchased my home in 1988. It was a small 3-bedroom ranch. My wife and I had 3 children and started to outgrow the house. While we looked at other real estates throughout Rockland County, we decided to raise our children here in Orangetown, where I'm a volunteer firefighter in the Blauvelt, and we already had made great friends. So we looked to make an addition to our house. The difficulty we had to go through to get a second floor approved for a house to pretty much keep the same footprint but add a front porch was insane. The town would not allow me to have a roof line on my 2-story house above my neighbor's 2-story house because it did not conform to the neighborhood. So I asked the town board, how would a 3-story townhouse conform to my neighborhood? It does not. Our neighborhood had to spend tens of thousands of dollars to nullify a use variance capricious and irresponsible, granted by the Orangetown ZBA, which would have allowed a 3-level mirrored building multi-car dealership on this parcel. Now a developer with a very questionable past comes in with a plan to add a high-density MFR zone when there is nothing like it in the neighborhood or even in Blauvelt. And if you're actually thinking about, or even in Blauvelt, and you are actually we're thinking about saying yes. Sorry, I wrote this before. You may do this without even requiring the applicant to complete environmental assessment form or releasing an environmental impact statement. So happy to hear that the developer pulled out. No one will benefit here but the landowner, contract purchaser, developer, their attorneys, and the unnamed investors, and the realtor who sells the homes, who I heard has been promoting the project at a Republican meeting and sits on the Orangetown Land Use Board, Akabor. Come on. You may not legally need to force this applicant to prove hardships, but if you chose to go against the town's master plan, you really need a good reason. What would yours be? There is not one good reason. You cannot argue that it is consistent or conforms to the neighborhood when there is no other MFR zone in the entire hamlet of Blauvelt. It is creating a new zone for the area. You cannot argue that it does not alter the character because it will absolutely change the character. You would be adding a high-density zone to an area where there are no high-density zone, and future requests on the other R40 parcels around it will now argue that the high density is part of the neighborhood. If you argue, coming to the end here, sorry about that. I have to cut it short with the, sorry.
Thank you.
Another half a page ago.
It's all right. We're already not doing it, so. Is there anyone else for general public comment, not for the couple of hearings we have? Yes, sir. No, that will be later, actually. Yes.
Anyone
Haram
else?
Place is later, and the what is it? The pack zones is later, and
Pack
the
zone's
solar
later.
panel stuff is
Anyone
later.
general comment?
General comment. Yes, sir.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Rand. I live in Blauvelt. Mr. Day, you said something earlier about thinking about people in the time of a contentious debate that can kind of bring us together. I think of my daughter, who's 4.5. I told her that I wasn't going to be able to be home for dinner tonight, and she says, "Why?" So I tell her that I have to come to a town hall meeting to talk about a big building that I don't think is a very good idea. So she pauses and gives me this very pensive look, which she's known to do. And she says, "Dad, I agree. I think that they should build the building in New York City where all the other big buildings are, and that would be a good idea." So I think if my 4-year-old daughter can come to a similar conclusion that we have tonight, I'm very hopeful that in the future we can think about people like my daughter who we make these decisions for. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right. Anyone other than solar panels, Haram Place, and PAC? No? Do I have a motion to close, Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Vitari? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Couple of responses, then I'll turn it over to Dennis, who has some, I think. We're going to go way back to the beginning. The specific first thing you brought up, Legislator LaHogan, about the 1.25 versus the version that's online. There were some edits talking with town attorney that we think a couple of board members think might make sense to limit the ability of the board of future boards to expand beyond a certain point to address those concerns that you brought up. That's why the version that you have in there has a cap of 1.25 for floor area ratio. The PAC zone was developed in the mid-2000s, I believe. A lot of it is already flexible by town board fiat, and this is changing certain ones that are, but also that's why that version is different, as you see outside. I did want to, I almost touched on it then, but Councilman Troy and his righteousness was right. I shouldn't have. I waited. Mr. Hogan, you brought up the population growth. I did take a moment to go on Wikipedia. In 1970, Orangetown's population was 53,000. I know. No, I know. You misspoke. I'm not talking about that part. You misspoke originally. You corrected yourself to the county. I'm making a different point, though. 1970, Orangetown's population was 53,000. In 2010 census, our population was 49,000. And in 2016 estimate was 50,000. So his 2016 estimate of our population is 3,000 less than in 1970, when a lot of the folks of maybe Mr. Hogan's age group, not to judge, probably, were looking to freeze it at. It's been frozen in Orangetown. However, and this applies more to maybe the county level, County Legislator Lo Hogan, Ramapo's population in 1970 was 76,000. In 2010, it was 126.5 thousand. 2017 estimate, 137.5 thousand. That's a growth of 61,500 people, more than the entire population, almost approaching the entire population of Clarkstown in that period of time. Rockland County as a whole, in 1970, was 229.9 thousand. 2010, 311.6. 27 estimate, 328.8. That's a growth of 98,000. That means that Ramapo alone accounted for 2/3 of a multi-generational growth in Rockland County's population. It went from a 33% share of the population of this county to a 41.8% share. We are not the ones overdeveloping in Orangetown. Even if, and I'll get to how this proposal even got to our hands here, but even if this had been approved, we wouldn't be overdeveloping. We're smaller than we were when I wasn't even a glint in my parents' eye. It's a reality. The development in this county is coming from one place in particular, Ramapo. It's from specific places in Ramapo. And those people at the county level who are afraid to say it, who come to towns that do the right thing, like Stony Point, like Orangetown, like even Clarkstown, which is bigger than us, but they have a different vision of what their town should be, but they're doing it responsibly, are masking the issue, and they're deflecting from the real problem, that as Ramapo's population share increases, our legislative districts get snaked the heck over there. We had no representation shared with Ramapo at the county level before the last census. Now, our legislative seat, Legislator Maroney, goes into Ramapo. Clarkstown has ones that go into Ramapo, because they all snake out like a piece of pie. And what's going to happen in the next election? It's going to be worse. So instead of worrying about a town that has shrunk by 4,000 or 3,000 in the last 45 years, 48 years, maybe we should be focused at the county level on the county problem, which is specific areas of Ramapo who not only are complete scofflaws, but are growing at unsustainable rates. If we don't do some growth, and they continue growing at this pace in other areas, our assets in our town, our resources of this county be drained entirely into one particular district. So don't come into our town hall and accuse this town of overdeveloping when we're smaller than we were, when everyone here moved into it, and when half of us weren't even alive yet. When Ramapo's over here almost doubling in size in that period of time. We agree. Thank you. Well, maybe say it next time. Dino property, thank you, Mike, you're out of order. I wanted to Councilman, former Supervisor Kleiner. The Broadacres course closure is something for the town board to consider. It's been a loss for a long time financially. We have 27 other holes of golf. I look forward to the discussion about what we need to do to make choices about what recreational activities we provide in this town. Salaries, however, under Supervisor Kleiner, his salary doubled in his time in office. I also know that I never would have raised my own salary, but I'm not here anymore. And I know that it was very difficult to find candidates for office at the levels that these salaries are. It's a fact. We have 2 candidates for supervisor, when they were the 2 that raised their hand, basically. One of whom has a state pension already, Mr. Kleiner, and is going to double dip it, and one of whom has an active business already to get the rest of the income to make it even. Town of Clarkstown pays $185,000. Forget Ramapo because they're responsible, but we're talking about a $70 million budget with 300 plus employees. You want to be able to pay someone to get a certain quality of supervisor. I fortunately had outside income as well to allow me to take this job. I could not support my family of 4 going on 5 in a suburban house where I had to pay $500,000 for my house because I didn't buy it before all the growth in equity value and in real estate here in the town. It's very expensive to buy a home. You know, the gentleman with a 4.5-year-old, I'm sure, knows that. To buy a home in our generation in the town of Orangetown, $500,000 is kind of the entry point, really 400 maybe. So that's why I put it in for this budget to consider. Also talking about high density, was the RPC was discussed. More density was proposed under his supervisorship. But I want to just touch on the Dino property before I turn it over to the board members. Not to say whether it was a good or a bad proposal, because we were here to listen to the proposal. The way this came to us was simple. a developer, Mr. Brodsky, who has built in Orangetown in the past, came to me and to the town board members and said, hey, I'd like to buy this property from this guy and put in some condos. I said, well, the first thing you do is talk to the neighbors and see what they think. The neighbors spoke to him, and they said it's the best proposal that they've seen thus far for the property. Fine, I didn't believe a word he said, to be honest. So I met with the neighbors, and they said to me, outside of acquiring it, which we don't have the budget to do, and it's not under threat of severe improper use, we would have to authorize an improper use, essentially, is that this is the best proposal we have seen. Therefore, we went forward to hear it. There was no sort of desire to push this down anyone's throat. I even got in touch with the paleontologist, brought him in and had him present to learn about the facts of the property so he would understand what is on that property. And as he reported, the majority of the tracks were removed previously and are in a museum. What's left is very difficult to view, even for him. At certain times of day only can he view it. And that the most finds would probably occur during the course of an excavation if he was able to work with a developer. I would love to have a Jurassic Park or a Triassic Park or a pre-Cretaceous Park, whatever this one would be, since it's pre-dinosaur, Paleozoic Park, for my kid to go to and see dinosaur fossils. But there's nothing to see there. I welcome and support other people and agencies who are endowed to purchase land and preserve it as green space. I believe personally the town of Orangetown needs to save its money for when a property is under genuine threat of overdevelopment that we can't control, that we can't stop, without buying it, and need to keep our powder dry, as the expression goes. This was something we considered solely because it was circulated amongst the neighbors, and I understand the neighbors changed their mind, and that's fine. They have the right to do that. I'm not holding it against them for doing so. I'm just explaining we didn't just sort of throw this out there and say, what the heck? We made sure that there was some sort of buy-in before we did it, and people changed their mind. Okay, that's fine, but that's where we are. So I'm going to turn it over to the town board. Councilman Troy, you got something?
I've had the privilege to be on the town board for about 20 years. During that period of time, I used to say we did downzoning maybe on one hand. It may have gotten to my second hand maybe 7 times, 8 times in that period of 20 years. This town, as one of the early speakers said, is very conservative in terms of what it does and does not do. One of the earlier speakers also talked about a trend. There is no trend here in this town. The only trend is what Supervisor Day talked about, what's going on in the rest of the county. I remember when we did the senior housing on veterans. We did senior housing, Supervisor Kleiner was here at the time. We did 100+ units on the north side. We did 100+ units on the south side. The Journal News had an editorial, Go Slow Orangetown, about that development. Meanwhile, the Journal News ignored the development going on in Ramapo from 2000 up to about, I don't know, maybe 2010, 2012. It's not in their articles, totally ignored. The Democratic Party in Rockland County has ignored what was going on in Ramapo for the last 15, 20 years. What's ironic is the Orangetown Democratic Party is waking up. Maybe because Nyack College is up for sale and it affects the river. The people of Pearl River, the people of Nanuet, this has been going on for years, where the tsunami coming from the west is coming at us, all right, with the overdevelopment. And the legislature, the Rockland County Democratic Party never said boo about Chris St. Lawrence, who is still in jail. The Democratic-run Ramapo, where were they? Now all of a sudden, oh, I'm against downzoning. Oh, I'm against overdevelopment. This town has been run by Republicans almost my entire, well, it has been my entire tenure except for 4 years. 4 years I was the lone Republican. 4 years out of my 20. Thank God for Republicans and how they run this town. Who have moved into this town, you moved into the right town. This town is willing to fight against overdevelopment. We are willing to listen. Are we right all the time? Maybe go a little one direction or another, but we will listen. And we have public hearings here. We do listen to the people here. It is televised. People can see this. You are in the right town. I know it's election time, so therefore some people are coming out of the woodwork. Hey, more power to you. Maybe you'll stay on and keep talking about overdevelopment. But this town, we run it right, and I'm proud of what we do here.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right. Well, whoever was here at the first meeting a couple months ago when it first came on, before we even have a hearing, there was a discussion, and I said, you know, we'll have a hearing, we'll listen to what people have to say. None of us have made any decisions, but as Chris said, you know, you'll get a call. I want to develop the dinosaur property. I go, okay. There's a couple of things that you need to know. If the neighbors are not for it, I'm not for it. That was the first discussion. And I said, you know, and it's got to be something that fits in with the conservative values of Orangetown. So there's a proposal, and I kept reminding the developer that this is what we want. We want the neighbors to be on board. We're not going to force something down their throat. We have the first hearing a couple of weeks ago. By the end of that hearing, it was apparent that the neighbors were not for it. I ran into the developer's attorney 2 weeks ago, and I said, there's no way this is going to go through. Week later, we have withdrawn of the application. The town board does listen. We do want to develop that property in accordance with how the people in this town want it developed, and we're going to listen to people and what they have to say. We get calls all the time from developers. They want to do this, they want to do that. As a board, that's our job, is to listen to developers, listen to the townspeople to figure out what's the best combination for the town and for development in the town. The great thing is, Chris just gave you the numbers. We're not getting bigger, we're actually getting smaller. And, you know, I've written a lot of laws with Rob Negrino to protect this town from overdevelopment. I could go into it, but there's too many to name. And that's it about the Ryerson property. And as far as the golf course, I agree with former Supervisor Kleiner. I have no intention of shutting it down.
Councilman Valentine.
Okay, let's see. Ryerson. I mean, pretty much Tom summed up what was going on, right? I mean, it is our obligation to listen to every proposal. He had a good caveat in his proposal, was that he was going to donate back to the town, but he had too many units. And if you think for a second he wouldn't be here despite the public outcry, if he thought he could get us, he would be here tonight with his proposal, because it was about building the units. It wasn't about the public. But to the credit of the neighborhood, expressing their views to us, he realized he wasn't going to get what he was hoping for. And that's why his proposal was pulled. That's the only reason his proposal was pulled, because he knew he wasn't going to get the votes he needed up here. And that was in credit to you people for coming out and expressing your views on it. I also agree that Broadacres, as I will do everything I can to keep that open. I would like to take that off the table in the budget. Being on the golf committee, I think it's an important thing to keep open. HNA, I also agree with the two ladies from Palisades. Absolutely, I think we passed that. We need that to hopefully stay viable so that it stays for its current use. Nyack College is part of the Nyack Building Department, and we can't pass any laws or any regulations. That's the development over there is not going to be brought before this board or our land use boards. That goes to the Nyack Building Department.
South Nyack.
Village
Yeah.
of South Nyack. It doesn't come before the Orangetown board. And I also think it's a great idea to try to, if you think you can get the money to keep that as open space, we have a representative from Senator Carlucci's office here who was against the Ryerson property. We have Ms. LaHogan from the county who was against the Ryerson. Pool them all together. See if you can get some money to buy the property from the current owner. Thank you very much.
Jerry, you have anything?
Yeah, going back to, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but Ryerson started actually in the summer. We all agreed that something of this magnitude would not be discussed with people on vacations, so we took every effort to bring this to the people, let the people hear, let the people come out and talk about it, and did. And I think that's evident by the people from Palisades. Palisades came out, they liked what was there, and we listened to them as well. So, you know, when it goes one way or goes the other way, it's not a matter of us saying, well, say what you want, and then that's it, it's over. You know, and as far as anything going on here, I personally don't see it as political, Democratic, Republican, or anything else. I obviously wasn't here as long as you were, but we're all in agreement with that. But
you're seasoned.
I think this is an issue that affects all of us, our homes, our families, going on. So, you know, at this point now, I think that we come together and we deal with it from that aspect. I also agree that I know Chris made some difficult decisions on different things, but as far as I'm concerned, the golf course is staying as long as we can possibly keep it. I think that just about covers everything. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
One of the reasons to keep Broadacres that I disagree with Supervisor Day on is the fact that it is an asset. We paid about $3 million or $3.5 million for Broadacres out of the $6 million we bought the Rockland Psychiatric. It's an asset. If you shut it down, all the greens, and I don't know if greens are like $40,000 each, somewhere in that ballpark, all right? If you shut it down and let it grow over, you're losing an asset. The reason for the asset is we had Hovnanian coming in. They wanted to build townhouses around a golf course. Now, whether somebody else comes in and wants something else, I don't know who's going to come in on the remaining property. The thing to keep in mind is Rockland Children's Psychiatric is still owned by the state. We still don't have right of first refusal. It's still a major concern to the town and to the town officials. So therefore, that's the reason for my backing the keeping of Broadacres around, because we need the asset in terms of whatever we may do in the future. So we'll find some other way to keep that open.
Thank you, Dennis. And just to be clear, for me, it's a money issue. I'm not trying to close the golf course. I'm just doing my best with my MBA, trying to figure out the math. But I also want to clarify for anyone who's not clear, I'm not talking about selling the golf course in this budget. It was ceasing operations at the golf course. I agree with Dennis, and the whole board agrees that that course only would get, that land would only get sold in a combination deal with the state land in order to sweeten the deal because it's clean land as opposed to the dirty state land that they have there. One other thing I did want to touch on that I meant to, someone brought up notifications for folks of zone changes. I do want to point out that there was a change done to the notification process by the town board. I forget if it was right when I came in or the year before I came in or 2 years before I came in, recently, a few years back. It was like 2016, I think, where previously a zone change petition did not get the notification process with the mailers to abutting neighbors and the postings that it did. It does now. That change was done by the town board. So again, things like that, it's responsive. And like everyone said, the reason why it was withdrawn because people know that the board is responding to the residents here. We do need to decide as a town how we're going to make sure we are set for the next generation. And that probably means being bigger than 53,000 in the next 40 years. But it also means doing it responsibly and in a way that makes sense for the community. All right, moving on from public comment, we're going to go into, we did already the vote on Patrick McGovern Drive. So we're going to move on to the public hearing regarding the Community Choice Aggregation Program. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor? All right, could you, Rosanna, the town clerk, please read any of the publication status and everything for this public hearing? Is everything published as it should be? It's been posted, okay. Did we get anything, Rob, from adjacent agencies that we need to consider relevant here?
No, this was a pretty,
Community choice aggregation, yeah.
right, it's pretty standard, it's a kind
It's
of a model
common.
law,
We
so.
basically adopted the language.
Right, right.
So nothing
With
we have to
tweaks
worry
Specific
about.
to Orangetown, no, I have nothing
Okay.
unique to this
All
application.
right, so again, just to reiterate, this is the community choice aggregation, which allows the town of Orangetown to set your default electrical supplier as opposed to the state of New York, which will result in a green and cheaper default supplier. If you have a contract with a supplier, you do not, it does not affect people with those contracts. Only people who right now use O&R by default would use whatever this one is by default, save some money, and it will be a green option. So there is no applicant in this case, so I'm going to open the floor. Is there anyone here for public comment on the community choice aggregation proposal? Yes, behind you, sir.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Council members. My name is Maria Gagliardi, and I live in Tappan. I'm a member of the Orangetown Environmental Committee and the Orangetown Climate Smart Communities Task Force. I'd like to thank the Town Council for renewing the town's commitment to the Climate Smart Communities program and for voting on community choice aggregation and adopting the New York State Unified Solar Permit this evening. In addition to the benefits of each initiative, the town's participation in CCA and the solar permit give it points towards receiving grant money on future projects that protect the environment and mitigate climate change's impact on the town's infrastructure. For those who don't know, Chris has summed up, community choice aggregation puts control of choosing an energy supplier in local hands by replacing the utility as the default supplier and bundling thousands of households together to get the most competitive rates. Orange and Rockland will still deliver the energy to homes, and homeowners will still receive one bill from O&R. Homeowners will not have to track when contracts begin and end, or worry that a lapsed contract will lead to much higher rates than the average household. I'm in support of CCA and the choice of dual assets as the administrator of the CCA plan. When the town signs up for community choice aggregation with dual assets, homeowners will save money on the utility bills and get their electricity from clean, renewable sources. Many communities in Westchester County have already taken advantage of CCA, and here in Rockland, the villages of Upper Nyack, Nyack, and South Nyack, as well as the town of Clarkstown, have either signed up for CCA program with dual assets or are in the process of doing so. Once we've all committed to the program, 1/3 of Rockland County will be getting its energy from renewable sources. So I'd like to thank Chris Day for his leadership on this environmental initiative and for better positioning our town to meet the threats that the climate emergency poses. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but at least on, is that you have Cablevision or Verizon? That's Verizon. Yeah, Verizon's not working right now. I just got word, Glenn Weinberg, I'm going to recognize next from Jewel Assets for public comment. Yes, come on up. If you could just maybe take us through whatever you think is relevant. I'll give you 5 minutes too, even though technically we could extend it if we need to.
Yeah, hi, I'm Glenn Weinberg from Jewel Assets. That was a great introduction as well as the supervisor's introduction. I won't repeat it for a third time of what CCA is. I will say that 27 communities in Westchester County have been in this program. Well, 20 of them have been in it for about 3.5 years. The other 7 coming in the second round, as well as now 10 communities on the other side of the river in the Hudson Valley and Central Hudson Gas and Electric Territory, with us, Jewel, as the administrator. And all of the communities that we're working with have chosen a 100% renewable energy default supply option. That was first and foremost as priorities for the communities that we've worked with. And as the previous speaker mentioned, we're already working with the villages of South Nyack, Nyack, and Upper Nyack, as well as the town of Clarkstown, and maybe other communities here in Rockland County, as well as broader O&R territory, Orange and Rockland Utilities territory. We're already at what we would consider a sort of critical mass to sort of go out to the competitive market dictate our terms for the buying that we'd like to see, 100% renewable energy, fixed rate, cheaper than what we're paying with O&R, and source our energy as close to where we live and work as we possibly can. Those are our principles that guide our procurement process, that we work in collaboration or in partnership with the communities themselves, with the towns and villages that we work with. And I'm here and I'm happy to answer any questions about the program. I don't want to take too much more time. I know you've got a busy agenda, so thank you.
Thank you. And if anyone brings up a specific question that we don't know the answer to, we'll ask you to step up if you don't mind. Mike, I think you had your hand up. Mike Mandel. Yep.
Yeah. Good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the board. Michael Mandel, Pearl River for the record. Just a couple of questions regarding it. And currently, just so they don't say I'm an anti-environmentalist, I've been getting my electricity from renewable source, which is hydroelectric power, which is the cheapest one out there if you go shopping. In 7C2, distributed energy resources, it talks about peak demand management. Are we talking about if there's a demand, they're going to cut our power down as New York City does, to reduce the amount of power that's available, or are they going to cut off, or are they going to spot blackout in areas? That's just what I was, wondering about as far as when you see peak demand management. Seems to be one of those things that has been used. The other thing is in 7C5, you talk about the CCA administrator. It says he's going to get his salary be based upon whatever the services he provides. Is that going to be a fixed rate, or is that going to be a billing type of thing, depending on what he does? Also, is that going to be borne by the consumer themselves based upon the amount of energy they use, or is that going to be based upon just an overall thing that'll be covered by the town as the administrator of it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. What I'm going to do is, just in case there's more specific questions, we'll take more comment, then bring you back up at the end for the stuff that we don't know or can't explain the answers to. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Council. My name is Melissa Gabuzzi from M&R Energy, and we are actually a natural gas ESCO, and so we don't have a dog in this fight for the community choice aggregation regarding electric. However, we serve many of your residents and your businesses here as a natural gas supplier, so I'm here to speak on behalf of the competitive market. What we have noticed in CCA in Westchester, and even most closely, is Village of Wesley Hills on the electric side, is that although the rates, the base rate, which is basically regular power, has shown to be slightly lower than the utility, where we're seeing the green power rates are being much higher than the utility. So what we're seeing in the, for instance, Wesley Hills has a default rate based on brown power or regular power versus their green power. The Wesley Hills was explained to be a 15% savings to O&R. It's actually probably about 5%, but the green power rate is actually higher than Orange and Rockland. What we see in a competitive market is that customers can go to a supplier directly and pay less than what we're seeing as results of the community choice aggregation. New York Public Service Commission has a website called the New York Power to Choose. On there, every ESCO, every supplier in each market posts their rates. We have seen more than a half a dozen rates on both regular power and green power to be lower than what we're seeing coming through CCA programs. These are posted by the Public Service Commission in order to educate them, give them the tools that they need to be able to make the decision they want to make on behalf of energy for their homes. I don't believe that buying energy, we learn from buying from Orange and Rockland as being a monopoly, that where we look at these economies of scale do not benefit every consumer out there. The fact that the government is getting involved in deciding how their customers are going to buy energy is shocking to me. The economies of scale that we speak about, that the more we pull together, the better price we're going to get, that's what we're seeing in these CCA rates. Westchester, for example, their small business rate 2.5 years ago came out to 9.9 cents a kilowatt hour. That was 30% higher than what a customer could have gotten out there in the marketplace. And this was small business CCA. That rate has come down a little bit to 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour, probably more than a little bit, but that's still over 19% higher than what they could shop for themselves out in the marketplace. Our businesses here are struggling, and we hear every day as an energy supplier, we live in this market day in and day out, about how energy costs are expensive, and especially Orange and Rockland delivery charges would have nothing to do with this. But if the town's looking at an economy of scales and saying, we're gonna buy better than you can buy yourself, take another look at that. Because there's tools out there the Public Service Commission offers to their customers, to bear the clients or the consumers of New York, to look at what prices they can buy in a competitive market. There's nothing better than a competitive market out there. We have had some bad actors, there's no doubt. We're not one of those, thank goodness, or if that's not our model anyway. We've been here for over 17 years. We know this market very, very well. There are 60 approved suppliers in the O&R market. When it comes down to bidding time, I'd be surprised. I know there's not more than 3 to 4 bidders out there. The reason you don't see a lot of the electric suppliers bidding this, there's a lot of risk in this for them. When they come out with their programs and they're offering you a fixed rate, they actually have to go out and secure that fixed rate in the futures market. They're going to put a premium into their price to cover for all that migration in and out of the program. I know this for a fact. We are an energy supplier. We know how they work. We know how they operate. Electricity is no different than natural gas. If there's any kind of risk involved in any kind of our pricing scenarios, there will be a premium on it. And that's probably why we see CCA rates higher than what a customer could get directly in the marketplace. I could tell you, for example, if natural gas were to be pushed out to a CCA and we were to bid on it, a customer would be better off buying directly from us because of the risk premium. So in addition to that, and nothing against Jewel here, you are adding another middleman into the equation. So in addition to suppliers adding on a premium, you're also going to have a certain fee for a middleman to secure that electricity for you. I think instead of bidding electricity out, educate the consumer. Let the customer know. How do you go out and purchase your energy? Use the website of the Public Service Commission of New York. Use the New York Power to Choose. Let them opt into a program versus opting out, versus you making that decision for them and saying it's their responsibility to opt out if that rate is too high. Otherwise, you're making that decision for them. Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Just to clarify something, is there one more? I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Yes.
Good evening, Town Board. My name is Heather Hurley, and I'm speaking as a member of the Orangetown Environmental Committee and also as a proud Democrat from the Pearl River who is not running for office and who has also fought against overdevelopment of all kinds over the years. At our September 28th meeting, we briefly discussed the Community Choice Aggregation Program. From that meeting, it is my understanding that Jewel assets will be used as a broker to find inexpensive energy suppliers from a variety of energy sources located both in New York State and from neighboring states. It is also my understanding that the program is being promoted by NYSERDA, which was also connected to a company called Anelitech and their grants, and luckily that project did not make it to fruition. On the Jewel Assets website, under the Community Power Frequently Asked Questions, it mentions, quote, in order to further guarantee energy sources, Jewel uses Green E, the nation's leading certification program for renewable energy. Green E monitors and imposes additional reporting requirements on energy suppliers and uses the Green E program to further bolster customer confidence that they are purchasing renewable energy. The same page lists biomass sources, but the information is incomplete because it fails to list all biomass sources such as municipal solid waste. It also lists, quote, gas as a fuel source. Does the general gas term include fracked gas plants outsourced from other states? In my opinion, there really isn't a choice, as the name of this program insinuates. From the OEC meeting this past weekend, it is my understanding that residents must opt out of the program if the town signs on and if they want to continue with their own energy provider. And the community, from what I understand, will not have a choice, per se, in what energy company Jewel Assets selects as an energy source. Biomass is not universally accepted as a clean energy source. Biomass energy can consist of the burning incineration of plant waste, trees, non-food sources, and medical and/or municipal solid waste, also known as garbage, and many times is unregulated. Many of these waste-to-energy plants are not, on the whole, economically viable, are built in economically deprived communities which lack the resources to fight the building of them, and are doing more harm to the earth in general. Some biomass waste-to-energy plants clear-cut trees to burn for power. How is that possibly considered a clean and renewable form of energy? Additional questions surrounding this program include, does Joule Assets make money from the town or commission from the energy suppliers? Does the town have the authority to limit any CCA contract to certain carriers of energy? For example, can the town limit the suppliers to solar or wind suppliers only? Does some of the energy sought out by Joule Assets include providers such as the controversial CPV plant in Wawayanda, which was built on bribes and had the governor's former aide found guilty, or from a polluter such as Covanta in New Jersey, which twice in a matter of 3 months released iodine into the air, in which the New Jersey director of the Sierra Club stated in an article, Newark's Covanta incinerator released dangerous iodine into the air this week. We only know that because the iodine turned smoked coming out of the smokestack pink, and the public noticed. The question now is where that iodine came from and whether Covanta is burning medical waste and releasing other toxic chemicals as well. DEP needs to investigate the iodine release to find out what happened and whether Covanta violated its air and solid waste permits. Communities are already suffering too much from the pollution these incinerators spew out, said Jeff Title. Another question, do any of Joule Asset sources come from outside the U.S., such as Canada or Europe, such as the proposed Champlain Hudson Power Express, which involves clear-cutting and flooding of large forests and was met with opposition from the Sierra Club Atlantic chapter? And a question regarding O&R, would there be any potential charges that O&R could pass down to the consumer if, who opt out if they're not making profits as being the sole provider? Right now, I strongly oppose passing this resolution tonight. More information for the public should be distributed, and this public hearing and public comment portion should be continued. Many residents may want the same answers to questions I have posed tonight. This should not only be considered an economically based win-win decision to do what is in the best interest of the residents of Orangetown, as some have suggested, but to also allow residents to decide for themselves through education about alternative forms of energy and from where it is sourced. It is also a moral decision to do what is in the best interest of surrounding communities, many which are economically deprived, dealing with environmental injustices such as pollution and negative health impacts, and to determine for ourselves, either as individuals or as a municipality, through education, what is considered green and sustainable energy sources.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. And just one more note.
Thank you, Heather. I just want to address something that's come up in two different, your time's up. I want to address something that's come up with two different presenters right now. I said it at the beginning. People under this proposal who want to go onto the marketplace still can go onto the marketplace. That's the core thing that is even allowing us to consider it. The only people that community choice aggregation, and I would turn this over to Mr. Rumford to just explain it, but I know this in life. I don't know all the smart electrical people stuff, but I know this. The only people affected by community choice aggregation were people who have defaulted, not chosen to actively sign on to ONR, but have been defaulted by the state of New York, a government entity involved in the process, mind you, to ONR as their default supplier. Those people will then be migrated to our default supplier instead of New York State's default supplier, which is the monopoly of ONR. They are our supply monopoly. They bring it in as monopoly, and they are on the market as an individual provider. They default as the individual provider. If you sign something with a green one, or if you have some sort of special portfolio where you like pollution and you sign up with the super pollution one, whatever it is, that's yours, and you can still do it after the CCA pass. So it does not affect that. It only affects ONR, and ONR's electricity, last I checked, is not green right now. They use all sorts of sources, including they were using a nuclear plant until recently. So we're not talking about Anelotech again. I thought that was over. NYSERDA is the people that gave us our LED lights in the town. There's not a grand conspiracy between NYSERDA and Anelotech to put waste incinerators
I never
somewhere.
said that. I never implied that.
I'm just saying. Your
I'm
time
just
is
saying.
over, Heather.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
just saying.
the,
I never implied that.
this is not about pulling people away from green stuff and putting them on some sort of thing that oppresses small communities. This is just the people who are on ONR, who defaulted there, would default to a different one and could still sign contracts to other people. That is the law as proposed, and there is no other thing that's being considered right now. All right, is there anyone else here for public comment on this particular topic? Eileen?
I'm very confused, but that's easy for me. In other words, I use M&R. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you, Heather, for your presentation. It's always very thorough and very informative, as we have known from your past work that you've done for Orangetown. As a homeowner, I have Orange and Rockland, I think, for electricity and M&R for gas, I think. Okay, thank you. I got that one right. Will I continue to be able, as an individual, with my individual constitutional rights, continue to use that form of source?
You'll be able to use whatever you individually want.
Now, do I have to notify Governor Cuomo that I don't want to participate?
It's the same process it is now. It just, instead of switching from O&R as your default, you're switching from ours as your
What does
default.
default mean?
When someone signs up for electrical service in the state of New York, your automatic supplier is the one that brings the electricity to your door, the one that owns the lines. They are the automatic supplier. If you didn't sign a contract like you did for your gas with someone else, that's the people that provide your electricity at a market rate, not a fixed rate. That's the default. New York State decided by law through the Public Service Commission that the people that bring you your electricity are your default suppliers of that electricity at the end of the chain. If you then go into the marketplace the PSC is set up, you can then choose one and switch it. It's still O&R bringing it to your door, but they're bringing someone else's electricity to your door. That's the default we're talking about. So instead of defaulting to O&R when someone turns on the electricity, or if they haven't signed a contract, it will default to whatever the town and other towns nearby who are in the consortium would default it to.
Okay, so in my very simple mentality that I have these days, why is it that with this particular new law that new contract that you're trying to enter into, why is it that the general public really doesn't have a clue about this?
I don't think they have a clue about electrical supply generally.
No,
I
they
think it's
don't,
very
but you know what,
confusing.
this could affect them.
No offense to the general
It
public.
could affect the people. And I think this particular public hearing should be tabled until the community at large knows more about this. This is an impact on the homeowners' monthly bills. We don't know anything about this. It's the first I saw this here tonight. The papers are in generally not very, Journal News, forget, you might not even get that one, which I don't. But there's really no way for people in this town of, 50,000 people that know what is going on here. It's very confusing. So in other words, if you pass this tonight, maybe about 20 people in the audience know all about it, maybe the people on TV, but they have no way to comment, know about this. And in general, I don't know if it's laughable or what, Tom, but I don't think.
I said, the people won't even know because it's not being broadcast.
But it's, okay, let's take it, it's not being broadcast? Oh, okay.
That what you said, they will never know. I go, and even the people trying to watch the meeting
Oh,
won't
okay.
know because it's not being broadcast on Cablevision for some reason.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
One of them's out right now.
Oh, okay.
So that was I wasn't
Oh,
trying to
okay,
be funny,
all
I was
right,
just saying-
okay, but anyway, okay, let's take it to the other step. Let's take it on the level of the municipality, the amount of what you will pay for electricity and gas being, what control do you have of making sure that the rates will be less than what you pay now? I mean, we had Simon's in here about a couple of years ago, they were supposed to reduce rates, I don't know whatever happened with that one. But, you know, what, this is all new to the community. It's all new. You know, these things are passed. You hope that you're going to have pay less on the level of a municipality. But do we really know that? And this is something new. And if Governor Cuomo has his hands behind this, guaranteed there's something else going on behind closed doors. And we're not going to benefit because we've never benefited from anything that man has ever endorsed in the state of New York. So anyway, let's table this. Let's get the community notified somehow or another to come out and learn about it. I mean, what do I have to do? Do I have to do anything? Do I have to call R&R? Do I have to call? Who do I have to call to say, I want to stay the way I am right now?
I've explained it just now, Eileen. As long as you were signed up for a contract, you would stay the same. That's what everyone would. If you sign for a contract, you have a right to stay the same. And if you're done with comment, by the way, because I don't want to continue taking your time away to respond to you in the course
I
of
don't know. All I can suggest is that maybe you could table this for the time being.
Thank you. The proposal right now in New York State law, Governor Cuomo, at the New York State level, has a law that sets your default electrical supplier to the people who bring the electricity to your door. This law makes the town of Orangetown set the default electrical supplier instead of the state of New York. That's what it boils down to. Individual contracts on the marketplace are valid if they're ongoing, and they're still able to be entered into. I'm going to wait again till the end of the general public to allow the folks from Jewel Assets to ask the more specifics, because that way I don't misspeak. But again, that's the general gist of it. New York State sets your default right now. Orangetown would set your default if this passes. We put the information out there. Clarkstown just passed this law with wide coverage in our town and in Journal News. It's been passed by multiple other municipalities. I don't expect most people in the town of Orangetown, I don't expect everyone to be an expert on electrical supply. Most people don't even realize that their supplier and their provider, they're different things. They just think, oh, O&R gives electricity. So there can be confusion on it, but these are the facts as presented, which is New York State sets the default right now. Orangetown would set it if this passes, if it passes. Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir, in the back.
Tom Kleiner, Spark Hill. Very briefly, Supervisor Day, you mentioned earlier this evening about things we could agree on. I think either tonight, if the town board decides to pass this proposal, or at an adjourned date, a community choice aggregation is good, I believe, based on what I know about it, what the Sierra Club has said about it, what Maria Gagliardi earlier had said about it, and others, is beneficial to the town of Orangetown in terms of saving energy costs, in terms of providing clean energy and options for the public. And I would support it and urge you to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If Matt or Anthony is still working on this TV thing, I'll note that our internet is down too right now, so that might have something to do with the lack of FiOS being involved, especially if FiOS does internet. Yes. I do understand. What we'll do is we'll try to take a summary minute, just because of the physical incapacity. Is that okay, everyone? All right. Given your physical issue, we'll allow it, yeah.
I appreciate it. I'll speak loudly anyway.
Thank you.
So I'm quite a fan of the community aggregate. I think it's wonderful. I do live in Clarkstown, and we did just agree to it. And I do have a couple of concerns, however, about how clean some of the energy is, if it's coming from the Chippy or Champlain, if it's coming from hydroelectric, which is really damaging to indigenous communities in Canada, et cetera. And so I have some very big concerns about how clean it is actually, as other people have brought up. But I do know that LNGs are quite a thing of the past, and our mandate, a New York State mandate, and climate change mandates are that we have to get off fossil fuels. We just absolutely must get off fossil fuels. This planet is suffering. It's not just that people are suffering and maybe don't have a way of paying their bills exactly the way they need to, but our planet is dying, and it's fossil fuels that are doing it. So LNGs, ma'am, that's not the way forward in the future. As far as I'm concerned, it's just damaging to our planet even more than what's already happening. It's not a transition, bridge, fuel kind of thing that's going to help us get...
Yeah, I'm sorry, just if you could
Oh, yeah, so
direct that at us.
I do believe that continuing with fossil fuels is just going to be terribly damaging to our planet. We are mandated to get off fossil fuels, to be fossil fuel free. LNGs are fossil fuels, and community aggregate is not. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you just restate your name for the record?
Jocelyn
Jocelyn DiCrescenzo for the person taking notes later. At Valley Cottage, New York. All right. Anyone else from the public? Yes, Mr. Tompkins.
Yeah, Honorable Town Supervisor and Town Board members, I'm Robert Tompkins from Pearl River. One question, can we change plans with this particular system if at any time? In other words, we are not locked into a contract that has a specific term
We, the town, or we individuals?
as an individual.
You as an individual still have the right to sign a contract with anyone else. This is like if you were on O&R right now, you would be able to change it anytime. So it's the
Okay,
same.
so anytime, if it doesn't work out for us
If you don't like
as,
the new bill, you can go on the marketplace and switch right back to O&R. You could switch to someone else. You can go to
okay,
anyone.
go for it. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mr. Tompkins. Anyone else from the public to speak on the CCA before I go back to Jewel Assets for the technical questions? All right. Sir? I'm not going to time you because this is really.
All right,
question
I've been
and answer
keeping diligent notes, so I'm going to go through this. So when I'm looking at my phone, it's just my notes. It's not, I'm not checking my email here. So I think I'd like to start with a couple overarching things. First, that came up a couple times. First, the local law that the board is considering tonight is purely an enabling law. So the way that New York State has set this up is that it rests the authority for a municipality, village, town, or city to go forward with community choice aggregation rests on their home rule authority. So first, they have to pass a local law enabling them to do so. If you look at the language of the local law, it really is purely enabling and exploratory, right? The town will look to see if they in fact can get a better deal in the market. If they can't get a better deal on renewable sourced energy, they won't move forward, right? And the town and only the town will set what those parameters and those conditions will be for moving forward with the contract. So they will put it out to the competitive market. This is a perfectly competitive market in that all of those 60-plus ESCOs that operate in O&R territory will get the opportunity to bid on this business, right? And the most competitive will win. Well, I'll go back to the beginning of the list so I make sure that I don't forget anything. The other overarching was the question about how the administrator is compensated. So we get compensated with a transparently disclosed 0.0008 dollars or 8/100ths of a penny per kilowatt hour that comes through this program. We are paid not by the municipality. The municipality has no financial burden, cost, or custody even in the community choice aggregation flow. We're paid by the contracted supplier as the administrator of the program. So it does not incur any cost to the municipality for the administration. So going back to the start, the first gentleman commented on the language in the law about peak demand management. This is not I think some of what you're referring to are utility programs that sometimes they have what's called direct load control, where they can shut off resources when the grid gets under stress. Peak demand management here refers to customer-sided programs and markets that customers can participate in to reduce their demand-related costs. So big energy users and even small energy users, a big part of their bill, about 20% of their bill, 25% of their bill, is related to their energy demand at peak. And there are ways that consumers can actually adjust their peak demand to save themselves money. That's what we're referring to there. On Wesley Hills and their rates, Wesley Hill, that's not a community that we're working with, so we can't speak to the rates and their selection of a default brown. I will tell you that all of the communities that we're working with in the Hudson Valley is a 100% New York State only renewable energy product that speaks to some of the questions about will we be importing energy from other states. It is all hydro, solar, or wind. So no biomass in the portfolio. I understand that the definition on the website is inclusive of some other sources. That's not a source that we're using. That's not a source that we have used. And in terms of Greenie, Greenie is a certification entity that we used in the Westchester contract because there was no New York tracking program at that time. I won't get into the minutia of that. But now that we do have a New York program, we're using 100% New York State sources. So the Greenie is no longer something that we are resting on in our future supply contracts. In terms of choice with the ESCO, like I said, this is the ESCO market. This is this is not parallel to or separate from or a monopoly apart from the competitive ESCO market. Those are the suppliers that are bidding into this. And in terms of going to the Power to Choose website and shopping for energy, the way most ESCOs make their money, their margin, is that they offer you low rates early on and then for a short fixed period of time, potentially. And then when you get off that contract, you typically roll into a market rate, which is usually inflated, and that's where they capture their margins. So you'll notice, and about only 15% of folks have actually selected an ESCO on the electricity side. The reason that that number is so slow is many have and have come off when they realized, what am I paying 17 cents? I was paying they offered me 6 cents a few months ago, and now all of a sudden I'm paying 15 or 17 cents, and they jump back to the default utility, to O&R. Community choice aggregation is an opportunity to secure a fixed rate. Our contracts are between 24 and 36 months. That means you pay the same rate for electricity every month, whether the market rate, as it does when there's a heat wave in summer, go to 11, 12, 13 cents, or a polar vortex in the winter, it spikes up. Your rate with a fixed rate contract stays exactly the same. That's why the consumers in Westchester County saved about $15 million in the first contract with community choice aggregation, and communities around New York State have adopted this really, really rapidly, including several communities now in Rockland County. So I'll move on quickly here. In terms of our sources, like I said, in our current contract in the Hudson Valley, we're getting a significant portion of our electricity from 5 run-of-river hydro facilities in the Upper Hudson. These are Lehigh certified facilities, Low Impact Hydro Institute. We can talk more about the ecological rigors that these particular facilities have gone through. It's very different than the sort of industrial Quebec hydro or Canadian hydro that you're thinking of maybe, or even Niagara for that matter. These are very small facilities, and they take great care to maintain the ecological and social systems around them. So we can talk more about that. Will the town have a choice? Somebody mentioned that the town may not have a choice. The town is absolutely in control. The town makes the choice. We make a recommendation. We're a hired consultant. We manage the procurement process for the town, and we come back to the town with recommendations. It is the town's ultimate decision to move forward or to not move forward. And it will be the town's ultimate decision to sign a contract should we provide a contract that meets the criteria that the town has set forward.
To jump in,
Yep.
It's an important distinction. This law gives us the authority, it invokes home rule, to let us do this and then decide whether we want to once we go to market. We cannot look into it without having the authority to look into it. So this is a required first step to searching the marketplace for a rate, is getting this law which gives us the power to do so. It doesn't mean we have to end up doing it if we don't like the rates, but we can't even look for the rates without having the law passed at the local level and retrograding the power from Albany to the town to look for the rates of electricity.
Exactly, and to your point, people don't know about it. They don't know about it yet. So like the supervisor was saying, this is the first step. The next step, when an administrator is placed, is a mandatory, at minimum, 60-day outreach period. And that's when we come in and we hold public meetings in, say, the town hall or other public facilities. We promote those meetings ahead of time. We distribute information through the town's website, through our channels, through social media, Facebook, through the local press, et cetera. We make sure that people do know about it and that they have opportunities to come and ask any questions they have. That's a state-regulated, mandatory, at minimum, 60-day period, and often much longer than that. So, and that's a couple other points I wanted to reach to, but I know I'm taking a little bit of time here. Again, the consumer, just as the supervisor answered the last speaker's question, the consumer ultimately always has the choice. If you have an ESCO currently, you will not be affected by this program. If you want to opt out of this program and choose another ESCO, that is always your option for free. There's no penalties or exit fees to do that. This individual consumer does not sign a contract with an ESCO through this program. They are not bound to any legal obligation to that ESCO, and they are free to leave whenever they choose. So I think I'll probably leave it there. I might have missed a point or two, but I think those were the big questions.
I think that addresses all of our questions on the subject.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else from the town board members? Yeah, Dennis.
So you're going to use renewable sources, solar, wind, and also hydroelectric. No natural gas?
No natural gas in the electrical supply. On the electrical, natural gas obviously for natural. This isn't natural gas. This isn't heating gas. This is just electric supply.
And maybe that's a good thing, because our good governor is killing us by not having gas pipelines going through the state. You have places now in the metropolitan area that can't do hookups for natural gas.
Westchester. Yeah.
So I get people striving, for clean energy, but at the same time, there is also a realistic approach to what we're doing here, and that's not the case in New York State, it's not the case in New Jersey.
If there's no other thoughts from the board, again, just to reiterate, we're talking about taking the ability to now look for the potential for suppliers and begin a process. We just need the power to do it. Are we comfortable closing this public hearing and moving forward to allow us to then begin that process?
So basically, Chris, if I understand everything correctly, we're not really doing anything here other than giving us the ability to compare what we can get from what Governor Cuomo is giving us.
Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. We have an O&R rate, and we're getting the ability to look.
If we back out of this at the 10th hour and say, you know what, I don't really buy it, it's just not working for us.
There are other rates available.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not you have A or B.
No,
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah,
it, but I
A, B,
mean,
C.
if
can
we
change,
back
cannot do
out,
it.
does it cost the town anything
No.
other than rescinding this?
All we do
resolution?
is we just don't act on it. We say, we get the proposals, Jewel Assets brings
Okay.
forward like 5 proposals, whatever it might be. We say, that's not worth it, that's not a good savings, never mind, and then we stop.
And that's after, we're gonna get all the comparative rates, we're gonna have an outreach to the public, the public's gonna have input, we're gonna be able to listen to the public, then we can make a decision. So this
Yes.
decision can be null and void, it's really just an exploratory vote.
This is just allowing us to look into this
Okay.
program. It gives us the power to do it. It doesn't make us do it.
Okay.
I guess the one question is, this is all about clean energy. Will Juul notify us if they decide to use different energy sources? Will that be written into the contract?
It's written into, should I?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I got a question. So if you decide to use biomass, you'll notify us and then we can get out of the contract? Or are the sources of the clean energy going to be defined in the contract?
They're defined in the contract, and they're defined in the RFP we put out to suppliers.
All right.
We won't put out the RFP until you've approved every single comma in that contract, and that's how we work. So when we put that out to RFP, the contract is this contract. The suppliers don't have the opportunity to come back with red lines or anything. So you've approved every word
Okay.
of that contract before even the solicitation goes out.
Great.
Sounds good.
I just wanted to clarify
Rob,
one thing that
yeah.
Paul said. Just to be clear, this is a local law. This will be a part of the town code.
Yes.
So that enables us to participate. It doesn't mean you have to, but enables us. Also, I just want to point out, kind of along the lines of what everybody's been saying, there's a reporting section in what's going to be 7C-8 that the administrator must file and prepare and file with the town board annually, every March 31st. And that would include the number of participating customers, those participating customers who canceled, number of complaints received, commodity prices paid, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a yearly thing that is required by the law.
We have auditing requirements. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I think, do I have a motion then to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving forward, we have the designation of us as lead agency for SECRA and adopting a negative declaration.
Just one change on that. The
Yes.
second paragraph should say, whereas on or about August 20th, 2019, pursuant to Town Board Resolution 2019-419, and I'll provide that language to Rosanna. And also, just one change on 7-9 of the law. It says the local law shall be effective immediately upon passage. I'm just going to say the local law shall be effective upon the filing with the Secretary of State. So with those two changes. you
Okay,
can
so we will reference those as amended. So do I have a motion for the SECRA resolution as amended? Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor? Do we have a resolution to adopt the proposed local law with resolution as amended to take effect as filed with the state of Secretary of State of New York? Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Valentine. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And then this is the follow-on resolution to authorize and designate Jewel Assets as the the company that will start this process for us. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Bottari. All in favor? All right. Next, we have more greenness. It's just, you know what, I gotta say, as Republicans, we're doing a pretty good job, and as a Democrat, Jerry, you too, of being very green in this town. You know, we're gonna be doing a lot of green things here. We've been doing them, and I'm proud of that.
Too bad we lost Indian Point.
Yeah, that is you know, if it's a carbon emergency, you'd think nuclear would be considered, but that's outside of our scope here in the town. All right, do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Move. This is a motion, Councilman Divney, a second by Councilman Bottari. All in favor? Aye. Has everything been published, Rosanna? Yes. Okay. Rob, there were some notes that are of key importance from you on this subject before we proceed with the hearing.
I'm going to first make note that we did receive from county planning. One moment. Of course we did. Have to shift gears. I don't have it in here. We did receive comment from county planning. I am going to ask Barbara Gianta just to step up and give just a little background on the law and what it does. And she and Jane Slavin have been working on it diligently. So.
Good evening. For the record, Barbara Gianta, Deputy Town Attorney. And I believe that what Rob was referring to was Rockland County has provided us with some proposed modifications to consider with the drafting of the law, which Jane Slavin and I will be going through together on Thursday afternoon. So there may be some minor modifications to the proposed local law that has been submitted to you. Supervisor, did you say you wanted to say a few words before I said anything?
No.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay, so.
Absolutely not.
So, basically, Jane and I have been working on adopting zoning provisions that would promote solar energy systems while protecting community character and environment. We have drafted a local law, which we have submitted for your consideration, which provides for the definition, installation, and use of solar energy generated systems and equipment. The purpose is to utilize safe, renewable, non-polluting energy source, decrease cost of electricity for residents, mitigate impacts of solar energy system on environmental resources, and to create synergy between solar technology and town comprehensive plan. And we have utilized a state model law to work off of and draft in the language that's before the town board. And I believe Jane has further information about it.
So this is part of the Clean Energy Community Program. It is an opportunity for local governments that has been set up by NYSERDA to earn recognition and possibly earn grant funding for these programs. So the program has 10 impact actions. The town needs to complete 4 of those impact actions. The adoption of the Community Choice Program is one of the actions. We are also doing advanced training for the inspectors on energy code training, working with NYSERDA on that. The installation of the LED streetlights is one part of the program, and the future installation of solar panels on town property, which Jeff has been working on RFPs for, and we're also reviewing tomorrow as well. So this program, when we meet the requirements, and again, there's 10 options, we felt 4 of them fit our community. It gives us the opportunity to apply for a grant of up to $250,000 to support future clean energy projects. And there's other programs that we can keep working towards that, again, will help get funding for future projects. So the interesting thing is we've had 194 residential applications for solar power or solar panel installations since January of 2017. We've been following the provisions of this unified solar permit application just through our training through the state anyway. So this is just really making it, it's formalizing it. So we'll have a code that sets zoning regulations for where the panels could be installed, setbacks, height, things like that, coverage of property, and it parallels all the local zoning codes that we already have established. So that's some of the comments we have to just review that planning had. And it also provides us with a permit. So we have our regular building jacket for permits, but the applicants will also need to complete this. And the applicants are typically the solar companies that are installing the systems. So this is a standardized permit, which again, we've been working very hard to standardize all our applications. So all solar companies will have to fill this out, and it'll be submitted with their permit application. They've also provided New York Solar Guidebook, which lays out every requirement for every solar panel installation that you can have. So we have this as a reference as well. So again, it's a great program that NYSERDA has, and it's been around for quite a number of years at this point, and it's just starting to catch on. And this is just one provision of that. And again, it's a zoning law. And once adopted, we now have something to refer to as far as solar panel installations, which is not currently in our code.
Okay. So I guess the question is, we can't vote tonight, obviously. if
Right,
still
we're
making
going to
changes.
continue it, but since it was advertised, if anybody wants to speak, we might want to.
Is the changes, before I open the floor, as people will know whether or not it's worth weighing in, are the changes significant, or they just need to be made and they're not really affect the general concept of the law at all? It's just tweaks, or are they big things?
I think they're tweaks. I don't think
Okay.
it affects the general nature of the law at all.
So if someone were to weigh in today instead of next time, it still would apply generally?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to weigh in today on the, Mike? Yes, Mr. Mandel?
Good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the board, Michael Mandel. Just a question under section 17.8G. Talks about tree cutting. Removal of existing trees larger than 8 inches in diameter should be minimized to the extent possible. What does that actually mean? I mean, it could mean, like my property, I have 20-something trees. I'm only going to cut down 2 so I can get solar power. One is an elm tree, which is hardly found in this area anymore. No, there's a big hickory in that tree. Both of them are probably 40 to 60 feet high. So just cut down those 2. Well, it's minimal. It's only 2 trees out of the whole thing. I think we have to have some sort of review or limitation regarding that. I think it has to be definitely clarified. As we cut down the trees, that's what takes the CO2 out of the air. So we're talking about something that we should really look at as far as that goes. And just above it, under C, vehicular paths within the site shall be designed to minimize the extent of impervious materials and soil consumption, compaction. There should be some sort of suggestion as to what materials should be used on those roads so that we don't have impervious areas and we can, water can be absorbed into the ground. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone for this evening's version of the hearing on solar panel permit? Okay, seeing none, we're going to defer all further discussion to the next rescheduled version of it, so we're going to go ahead and entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to the regular town board meeting of October 22nd at 7:45 PM. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second by Councilman Dibny. All in favor? Great. All right. The next public hearing. I'll tell you, we're really paying for those 30-minute meetings we had for about a 6-month period, huh? Lot and bulk controls for packed developments. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Councilman Dibny with the motion, Councilman Valentine with the second. All in favor? Aye. All right. So again, this is one, there's a relatively brief amendment to the existing packed development zone law that right now, to sum up in layman's terms, the town board currently has flexibility on several parameters of density, especially in downtown districts when it comes to the packed zone. Planned adult community, it's for senior housing essentially. This changes and gives flexibility on other ones as well that have come into an issue. It kind of came to a point ahead with the proposal that was approved at the town board and went to the ZBA, and there's been some back and forth on, where this appropriately fits. The version that was originally proposed and put forward was circulated, and I'll get to the comments, but there's an edit in the version that is now being considered that is meant to address comments from county planning and some concerns that it was expressed by members of the town board when we first talked about circulating this, and we'll get to that. But basically, it puts a limit on, it puts a max cap on the overall floor area ratio that a town board could even do with 4 votes. So, Rosanna, was everything published as appropriate? Robert?
Yes, we received a letter from the Rockland County Planning. Actually, I downloaded it from their website. I don't know if we actually received it, Rosanna. Did you get a copy of the letter dated September 24th from Rockland County Planning? In any event, it was.
We got it.
Yeah, we got it. I downloaded
found
it, but. Right, but because I downloaded it, it was, I don't know that we
went out
received
and found
it.
it. That's why we pay you the big bucks, Rob.
So that's right. So they, pursuant to the GML, they recommend disapproval. I'll just summarize it. It says the proposed zoning amendments seem to be diluting the requirements for planned adult community overlay zone in the CS zoning district. Specific criteria I provide to help realize the goals of the town regarding provision of senior housing needs while balancing community character. Several other criteria within the CS zoning district are already listed as TBD, meaning to be determined, allowing great flexibility for PAC projects. So just interpreting that, there are, as I think Supervisor mentioned, there are some that are already subject to review by the town board each time an application comes in. Just goes on to say the current amendments would permit the town board to modify lot area, floor area ratio, and density, resulting in almost a carte blanche for CS zoning districts, since the only other criteria defined zoning are building height, street frontage, or parking. The consequences may be a development proposal that is much denser than desired, out of scale with the neighborhood, incompatible, et cetera. It goes on to say, if most of the standards are determined by the town board, then specific criteria must be established to guide them in the decision-making process to avoid subjectivity and developer-driven projects. We strongly urge the town board to not eliminate lot area, floor area ratio, or density parameters for PAC developments in the CS zoning district. And what that means, as the board members are aware, based on the recommendation, if the board were to approve this, the board would have to vote to override this recommendation by a supermajority, or 4 votes.
Okay. And then, just to circle back to what I introed with, in response to both that and concerns that Councilman Valentine and I raised about there being a little bit too much carte blanche, we put in a max cap on the floor area ratio, which in planning generally is kind of the magic, density control of the most, even with 4 votes, could a town board get to is 1.25 FAR. Given a CS zone is generally speaking downtown, that's why it's it's not the other PAC communities like you see on Veterans. It's the ones that would be put into a downtown area. You have all sorts of different lot sizes that are often smaller, but a 1.25 is kind of basically the density you see in the most density you would see in a downtown we have right now in the town of Orangetown for floor area ratio. So.
And generally speaking, just so I know the board's aware, but when a PAC comes in, that is a local law, so.
Yes, there's public hearings on it and everything.
Right,
Yeah.
so the town board, as part of that process, would have the ability to set those parameters, but again, the existing code has them as they are.
Technically, any board can make any law at any time, essentially, if it wanted to, with 4 people. It could pretty much do it at once, so, but we're putting some control on as long as we keep having responsive boards. Is there anyone here to speak on this law as proposed for the public hearing? Yes, Mr. Quinn.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the town board. My name is Brian Quinn. I'm an attorney. I want to speak in support of the proposed amendment to the PAC zone. I believe that this proposal will give this board the ability to determine proper bulk specifications on each of the proposals that may come before you. I'm going to start out with the county planning letter because I received a copy of that today. It indicates county planning got this package in, I believe it was August 28th, and they produced this letter, and I guess we all got it this morning. What I found disturbing about it was it seems that the county planning department is suggesting that this board is really not capable of making proper determinations regarding local zoning and bulk specifications on properties in downtown Pearl River. And I would respectfully disagree with that conclusion, and I think I could state that I am uniquely qualified to say that because I made application to this board with respect to a project that one of our clients has been progressing in downtown Pearl River. Specifically, it was the Galway Bay project, North William Street. It's the Joyce Realty Building. The proposal is to add 2 additional floors to the existing 1-story building. It would consist of 16 PAC senior rental apartments. And we went through several meetings with the town board. There were public hearings. As I recall, almost everybody who appeared and spoke at those public meetings spoke in support of this project and the need for senior rental apartment units in downtown Pearl River. And, this board, I'm going to be honest with you, you guys didn't give us an easy time. We had to appear before you several times, and there were some concessions that were extracted. There was concerns about parking. There is parking on the site. There is an adjoining municipal lot, which we determined we could purchase parking passes or permits for. And ultimately, this board asked for, and our client consented to, a substantial contribution to parking in downtown Pearl River. We recognize that that's part of a problem. Ultimately, this board granted the proposed zone change in the July 2018 meeting, more than a year ago. And we then proceeded, and actually I'm going to go back and I'm going to circle back to that approval resolution because many of the comments that the county planning letter is raising today are the same as what was raised previously when this board was considering the proposed PAC zone change. After we received the zone change, we went to the planning board who reviewed the site plan. This board actually had the site plan as part of it because you reviewed that and you made determinations with respect to a lot of the bulk requirements, the street frontage, things of that nature. We received the unanimous approval from the planning board for conditional, that was the preliminary approval, as well as a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And as part of that SECRA review, it was determined that this project would not have any kind of negative impact on any environmental conditions, character of the neighborhood, traffic, or any other concerns that may have been raised. We then proceeded with to the zoning board because the existing PAC zone allows this board to make certain determinations and variances, but then requires that the ZBA make others. And when we went to the ZBA, and part of the problem here is, I believe this was only the second PAC application in CS downtown Pearl River that came before the ZBA, and they were not familiar with it, and they were concerned about what they were asking to be done. At the end of the meeting, we were asked, and we continued the meeting, and we held discussions with town attorney's office, I believe the building inspector. We were looking for certain interpretations as to what could be done and what we should do. And it was suggested to us, and the ZBA, I believe, specifically said, we want you to go back to the town board, and they should make these determinations. Well, that's not what the law says. So that's what this proposal is to allow you the flexibility and to make the determinations on the remaining things that are raised as part of the county planning letter. I believe that the proposed amendment provides adequate limitations and also provides you with the needed flexibility to consider each of the proposed bulk regulations. Since my time is up, I would like to ask that your resolution of July 18 be entered into the record because you specifically made certain determinations and findings in response to the concerns of the county planning department, which are exactly the same ones that are being raised tonight. as in their September 24th letter, so.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
if you
you.
bring that to the clerk, we'll put it on the
Yes,
record.
I will.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this topic before the town board discusses it amongst ourselves here? Yes, Eileen?
I just want to add that I think this is another very good reason for the town to update its master plan, because I think you're going to see some more packs coming in, perhaps in Pearl River. And this way, the directions to go forward would be more clear.
Thank you, and I agree. Anyone else to speak on the subject? Yes, sir, in the back.
Tom Kleiner, Spark Hill. There's been a lot of discussion tonight about overdevelopment, everybody's concerns about overdevelopment. And ironically, a reference was made to a proposal I advanced a number of years ago, which actually would not have had the result of increasing housing density by even 1 unit. Because, for example, in an MFR zone, if one was building in an MFR zone in a 20-unit apartment building, you knocked it down, you could only get a new 20-unit apartment building, not a 21-unit apartment building, so it wasn't higher density. And for what it's worth, it wasn't low income because it was for those making up to $80,000 at the time, and 2019 dollars, maybe $115,000. And I just raised that because this proposal that we passed, the PIC, Planned Adult Community Law, was beneficial to the town. And as you indicated, Supervisor, did provide for some flexibility within it. What I'm not clear about by just reading the statute, and maybe you could clarify before you vote, is how much additional density would this law permit the town board to pass if a proposal was in the CS zone? You indicated it was 1.25 was the difference in the CS zone. So 2 questions really. One, would it only apply under this resolution to the CS zone? And number 2, how much additional density would be permissible in the CS zone? And from a public policy standpoint, finally, why would, if you are going to pass it, why do you think it is in the best interest of the town to do so? Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important, since the ZBA aspect came up, to address why it may make sense, why the legislative act is different from the judicial act of the ZBA. The concerns the ZBA raised was that we passed a law that allowed a PAC, under the PAC law, 16 units on what, like a couple acres? Half acre. The other one, yeah, 16 units on a half, 0.54 acres, which about the normal density of the downtown Pearl River type area, right? The concern that the ZBA had specifically was the precedent-setting nature of ZBA decisions, that we passed it with these things and we said, hey, here you go, and then they needed to get variances to get parts of the things we already authorized via legislative act. Their concern was that if someone were to get before them in a different zone or in another PAC zone, and then they could cite precedent of the ZBA's decisions, just like I just had to go to the ZBA to get my height limit for my second front yard fence changed. I got to get a variance for that coming on a corner lot. And the fence that had been there since 1969 apparently never had a variance. But one of the reasons I was able to get it was because I pointed to, a dozen other properties who got it, because it's just a silly little variance. A few $100s, but a silly little variance. This would not be a silly little variance. The difference is when the town board passes an act, it's a request, it's a legislative act, there's no legal bind to precedent on it. If we choose to decline to say you have to set a certain floor area ratio on this one to the other one, they can't say, well, you did it for the other one, you have to do it for us too. It's not the same as the ZBA. That's what the ZBA's concern was. That development that we did vote for and passed, it was 4-1, I believe. The floor area ratio of that one was 1.1-ish, 1.15, 1.12, 1.15. So this is 1.25. So approximately the density of that is what the most density that a supermajority of the town board could do in the situation where it wants to, and yes, only in a CS zone, in the CS zone, which is a downtown-oriented zone, could it do that. It does not affect the late law is written for other areas like on veterans where you have the non-CS zone development or developments if someone were to apply. So that's how we got to where we are, and that's why we put that cap to make sure that we're not going to get into downtown any more downtown development than what we've already said we're comfortable with generally for these sort of applications, even if a board changes their mind. Though, again, a board could always just pass a whole nother law if it wants to. It's got 4 people. It could do anything it wants. But that's neither here nor there. Any other folks here to comment on this? Yes, Eddie?
Good evening. Eddie O'Day, Pearl River. I've been here for 25 years. I'm in support of the project at Joyce Realty. I think it'd be great for the downtown area, just like I was in support of the Amy Lane project, those apartments. I believe the more people that we bring into the town, it's not going to look like a ghost town. We'll have a little more vibrant, and maybe more stores will open up and continue to grow a little bit. Pearl River, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak on the public hearing in question? Seeing no hands. Was there a hand? Did I hear? No? Okay. Must have been someone scratching their head. Seeing no hands, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Do we want to just discuss it first before we close or continue? All right, so gentlemen, what are your thoughts? Anyone who wants to speak first? If anyone wants to speak. I can keep talking, but I'm getting sore here.
As everybody knows, I was in favor of the Galway Bay project. I think it's actually a good project and a good spot for it in downtown Pearl River. I'm not in favor of changing this local law, though, because I think it gives future town boards too much power. There should be a system of checks and balances, and that's why you have separate boards. The ZBA should have made a decision instead of kicking the can back to us. If they thought 16 units was too many units, then they should have went to the applicant and said, I think 16 units is too many units, or we disapprove of the project or we approve of the project. We did our job, we changed the zone. We made it a PAC zone, but then there's zoning board rules within a PAC zone that they have to follow as an applicant. If they don't, then they got to get a zoning change. If we take that ability away from them, I'm not worried about us. I know, I support this project. I think it's a great project. I'm worried about future projects. And, you know, I don't think it's the right thing to do to be reactive to one project and change a law that gives the ultimate power to the town board, because I think it could hurt the town in the future. But I do support this project. And I think that the ZBA should make a decision, some kind of decision, or a compromise, or something. They shouldn't have kicked the can back to us.
The whole, as myself, Tom Kleiner, we passed the PAC zone going back. I don't even know what year that was, 2007, 6, I don't know, 4 or 5. And then it took a long time to get the first PAC zone in. You know, we had the Hollows, and then we had on the other side, at that time, it was called the Point, and then came up with another name or whatever it was, all right? And then the third one that came in was for the corner, the northwest corner of William Street and Central Avenue. And that one was controversial at the time because there was a sacred movie theater there that some people kept swearing there was going to be a movie theater there forever. I thought that they were blowing smoke up to the people of Pearl River who were looking to keep a movie theater. It wasn't financially viable, and the developer went through a lot just to get through, to get that PAC zone. It turned out to be one of the nicest corners in downtown Pearl River, maybe in downtowns in general, all right? In terms of your point, is that the PAC zone in general is controlled by the board. Right? I know your point is that the zoning board ought to do what they have to do. I think the zoning board made an excellent point in terms of if they change the bulk area ratio for this project that the town board voted 4-1, all right? If they changed the bulk or gave in to 1.15 or even 0.85 or point, it establishes a precedent that they don't want to cross other zones. This is a very
Wasn't
narrow
there
zone.
precedent set with the movie theater? Couldn't they follow that precedent?
No.
Why is it different? It's a pack
It was a
zone, it
different-
sits 30 feet away.
Because it's a different, I think it was under a different approach. There's two different ways you can go pack zone, and Rob, you explain the difference.
Well, I think in that one, it was an existing building, so they kind of.
That's what it was a
called
conversion.
A conversion.
It was a conversion.
as opposed to-
This is a new, because they added floors in this one.
They added floors on top of that.
Not technically.
Well, not height-wise.
They did not change the height of the structure.
Not the exterior of the building.
The
It was
exterior of the building.
A determination that was made.
If you look at the law, there's two different avenues to do.
Yeah, and Jane and I sat down on this many times about this particular one, and the difference between the two is that the roof height and the exterior shell did not change in that one, though they put floors inside it. It was like converting your attic without having to put dormers in, essentially. Whereas this one is actually adding floors and couldn't fit under that conversion section of the law, in which you have completely different rules. And really, this kind of brings it more in line with the conversion side for the downtowns, because the downtown, when you do a conversion space, you're allowed more density than you are in a non-converted one right now, under the current law. So this
Right.
is a additional floors, so therefore it's a different part of the law.
And in terms of size, it is consistent with the one on the corner.
Seems to be consistent to me.
No, it is, you're right, yeah.
So,
Even height, number of apartments, seems very consistent.
well, that's my point. So the way,
So I don't know why the ZBA didn't take a bull by the
Well,
horn.
because they didn't give a variance in that other one.
But
They didn't
it's-
have to.
Paul,
They would have to in this one.
it's back
That's
to
the
us.
difference.
You were for it before. It's back.
I'm for the project, and I don't appreciate the law, because I think it's gonna be a problem in the future.
I think this, if I could just address
Yeah.
the issue that just came up. I think the one, maybe think about where, now it's called Russo's Pizza, or what used to be Fordham Pizza across the street, or
Russo's.
where, Noonan's is. There's existing, well, I'm not sure about Noonan's, but there's existing downstairs and then apartments above. Those are what are eligible for conversion. Those are called the conversion for downtown. That's what the movie theater went under.
So you're saying like the Pearl River Hotel would be.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's a good,
perfect
right.
example. Anything that's already got space, even
Got
if it's
3
not
floors.
that type of
That-
space already.
That
It's
would be a
just space that
conversion, and
exists.
that's one where if an applicant came in, for, let's say Pearl River Hotel came in, then this board, as part of the local law, would have the flexibility to, adapt to what they're asking for, or, yes, no, whatever the board felt. The difference was with the Joyce building, they wanted to add floors, so that's really the difference. So it was treated as a redevelopment. So redevelopment in a CS zone is treated differently than a conversion in a CS zone. So I think, as Chris said, it's kind of making redevelopment and CS almost on equal footing.
And that's, in my mind, that's kind of the issue, is that, one, by putting a cap in, we're limiting the floor area ratio to a level we see in our downtowns already. With the 1.25 is kind of where you see the downtown floor area ratios
No,
at.
it's actually 0.45. That's the floor area.
No, that's
ratio.
what it is right now, but in the new version of the law, we put a cap on the most that the town board, and even with 4 votes, could get a floor area ratio to. We put a 1.25 to try to address the concerns of Rockland County planning. That's more similar to what we have in the downtown and in converted spaces already. My view is that, one, I would be concerned with the ZBA's, the variance issue and precedent setting, because then it takes it out of the hands of the town board, the representatives, and it puts it into the courts to force things that we see happen, has happened in the past Orangetown. And two, I think that giving the flexibility up to a level that makes sense in a downtown, which we see already in things like, it brings it in line with the movie theater. It brings it, that just because one of my bugaboos about Pearl River is that one building has 1 floor, and the next building has 2 floors, one building has apartments, the other building doesn't, and this guy can't put them on, where this guy can have apartments. This kind of makes it so that the guy with the floor, the building next to it wants to come in, he gets about the same level of rights as the one that already happened to have 2 floors on there, to be able to put the same level of density in. That's why I think it makes sense generally, as long as that cap is in there, which there is now, so that someone can't put like a 5 floor area ratio and put 17 stories up on a downtown. This would basically keep it to this level of development by nature of the floor area ratio.
How does it fit in with the Pearl River downtown redevelopment proposal?
In this.
I know it's senior citizen, Dennis, but
Downtown development's a long way away.
I know that,
No,
but how does it fit in with the long-term plan?
I think that they're two different things necessarily. One would be.
What's the floor area ratio in the downtown Fall River
What is the
plan?
floor ratio? I don't remember, honestly.
One's a pack zone and one's not, right?
Well,
Yes.
one's packed, one's not.
One's packed
Yeah.
and one's not. It's apples and oranges, it's not.
But the way we wrote the law for the downtown zone does not
So
really.
does this
it's
just
units.
affect the one property and that's all will ever affect in Pearl River? No.
No,
No,
it could
it would-
affect
it
other
would affect-
other CS zones in other downtowns.
And other, again, think of, you know, we went that way, if you go up Central Avenue, across the street where
Right.
Yogurt Place is, or where Mickey's is, you know, that would be a redevelopment, because.
Just west of the.
Because it's two stories now, and ended up, could be 3 stories.
But this isn't just.
No, but if you're 2 stories, you're not a conversion. No, because if you go up the 3rd floor, you're a redevelopment.
If you go up to a 3rd floor,
Yeah,
yeah.
we agree.
But this isn't just a Pearl River issue, this is an any downtown and an Orangetown issue. The Pearl River downtown thing sets a standardized thing across the entire, would eventually set a standardized thing across the entire downtown of Pearl River. This allows, in my mind, this is a law that is already a case-by-case, you know, super flexible, put it where you want it sort of law by design from '05. And it's not one that's been like super strict to begin with, but what it doesn't have is the right amount of flexibility to actually do a downtown style development in a downtown, because that's about the level you're looking at, is the amount of units that they're talking about, you know, on a half-acre lot. You know, you're talking a floor area ratio that's above what we can authorize already under the law. I personally think that you have a requirement of 4 votes, which is enough to pass any law in Orangetown anyway, in any town, and then you have a limit to what they can't do, even with 4 votes, as amended in this law. So that's that for me. Without that cap, I wouldn't be okay with it. With that cap of a max of 1.25, even if you have 5 votes, you can't get above 1.25. That makes me okay with it, to address the concerns about variances being given that could then be used against us in the future to shove development down our throats instead of us choosing to do it.
So I'd like to hear from Jane to see what her feelings
Sure.
are, and Rob to see what his feelings are.
Jane, you want to go first?
Not really. I really don't want to offer an opinion on it. I mean, I think you have to consider the future and what could happen, and whether or not you maybe can put further limitations within that section of the code, if the board was looking at moving forward and adopting
Are
it.
you saying put in density and lot area in the, like, it says .125, you're saying we should put maximums in the law? Or?
Yes, you can look into that. If any of the board members are concerned about future development on other CS locations as to what that maximum could be. I mean, these are principles of planning,
And
so.
that addresses the county override.
Correct.
Further address it, yeah.
So you can further limit what you can approve within this actual law. So whether or not I agree or disagree with it, I think you should just look at overall impact on all the CS districts and the size of those lots. We all know Pearl River in and of itself is a special place. It's the only place like it in Orangetown.
Yep.
So if it's going to happen in other areas, you also want to look at that.
Okay, thank you.
My quick take, the one, actually, this is a little bit towards Paul's point. On the conversions, you can't add square footage. So on the examples we gave of, you know, Noonan's or the hotel, you're really not supposed to add square footage. So that is what it is. That's not going to go higher or denser. Maybe you may get more apartments somehow, but there is a limit on that.
To explain that, with the movie theater, they took space that's normally open because it's a movie theater, that was a 2-story space, and they added a floor in there. So that gave them the apartments. So technically, that's adding floor area ratio by definition in our code. However, it wasn't adding bulk.
And that's what determines whether it's a conversion is the bulk.
Correct.
Not the floor area ratio, generally.
Correct.
I guess, yeah.
Or at least that's how it was interpreted at the time.
Yeah, yeah. you know, I guess the issue is in terms of setting the limits, you know, again, you could do that if you wanted to set the limit, you know, for that particular project. I think it's 6, you know, just putting it out there, it's 6 dwelling units per acre is what's permitted on a redevelopment site. That particular one, based on having 16 units on half an acre, was 29 or 30 per acre. So, you know, you could put a limit of no more than 30 per acre, but again, that's, you know, that's a large number. You know, so, but the issue is, and that goes back to maybe not putting a limit, what happens when developers look at these, you know, if there's some limit in there, they may look and say, oh, I'm not even gonna bother because there's the limit and I'll need a variance, et cetera. So again, that goes to your point, to have the flexibility, they can come in and say, all right, you know, in order for me to make this viable, I need this. And, you know, using that as an example, in order to make this viable, I need 16. And maybe you come back and say, well, how about 14 or 12, whatever. But, that, you know, so in terms of my opinion, it does give the flexibility, and they're before the board every time, you know, and
It's an
just like the
individual
process with
application each
Ryerson
time,
and all the others, if it's a situation where, you know, 16 units are too much, if 16 units are good on this one, fine. If on the next one, you know, it's too much, you know, you have the flexibility not to do it. That's as it exists. And frankly, my preference would not be to put anything in other than the 1.25, because if we do say, well, but not more than 30, it, you know, just kind of sounds.
You're pegging it, kind of,
Right,
putting
exactly.
it in there.
Now
You're like
somebody
saying,
say,
oh,
I
30,
can
you
get-
consider 30.
I can get
okay,
the
well,
town board to go for 28, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, when you might have no intention
The
of
only
going
number
that.
is in there is in the recommended number as
Right.
opposed to the max number, but the 1.25 does give you a cut. But one thing you said earlier, Rob, that every time the town board does this, they're technically passing a law.
A
Right.
local law,
They're
right.
passing a local law to implement the PAC zone.
Right.
When the town board passes a local law, aren't they technically able to pass anything in that local law? Like, if, once you pass a local law, could you pass a local law? This maybe I'm not saying it right, but.
I know what you're getting at.
For this one project.
Right, like,
Right.
let's say for this one, if you're already passing a local law to give them a PAC zone, couldn't you give them a special PAC zone and, like, a bad board, that's not us, but like, if some bad board came in and said, we're gonna pass a local law, we're gonna call it a PAC, we're gonna call it a PAC, you know, PAC Smith's Application LLC zone, and it's gonna be a FOIA ratio of 17, like, couldn't they do that anyway?
Right, that kind of came up with the applicant, but the answer is no. The law is the law. It says these are the parameters. And when you're coming in, passing that local law is within those parameters. So I hear what you're saying.
Can't you
but that's-
change the parameters? It's like
No.
Congress amending a
No,
law
that's
that it
what,
passed.
that's what you're doing here, by a separate local law. You're changing the parameters. You're changing the parameters. You can't, because the law is as it is, what you're doing is taking that law, the basis for your legislation is the existing code. You can take that code, otherwise, you know, you shouldn't have any.
Couldn't you, in the same legislative act, change the law while you're passing the?
No, my opinion
thing?
is no, because why would you have anything in there then?
I don't know. I'm asking. I'm not the attorney. I'm
No,
just a notary.
No,
I'm
that's
not
true.
an attorney.
Well, congratulations on
Thank
becoming a
you.
notary. But, no, it's the authorization to grant a PAC zone, it's an overlay district. In other words, that's in a CS, existing CS district. They're coming in here saying pursuant to the PAC law, the existing town code, and the parameters that are in there, we're asking you to make that an overlay zone. Make it, let us put PAC in there, Planned Adult Community. So the parameters of what can go there are already set by the local law. And when you go in, you grant the zone, the change as is. But that's why we're here now, is to change that PAC law so you can have the opportunity to change the parameters. And that's why when it passed, and we went through this at the time, we said, look, you can't change it by local law at the time. You're granting the PAC zone, you're within the parameters of what has been set, and if not, it has to go to the ZBA. And that was, you know, again, because otherwise it could just say, it wouldn't have all those differences for, you know, a CS redevelopment or a CS conversion or whatever. So that's the long answer. The short answer is no, you can't change it each time it comes in. It would have to be, as we're doing now, grant the flexibility, and then you would have, you know, that's in essence what we're saying. is by this law say, okay, on this particular one, we're just changing that one, make that change. Because, again, when the law was initially passed, it did, the one thing we're taking out is notwithstanding the flexibility, which is already incorporated into the existing PAC law, the minimum lot area shall be 40,000 square feet, maximum floor area ratio 0.45, and maximum density shall not exceed 7 dwelling units per acre. So again, when that law was passed, which authorizes PACs, those parameters were set. We're saying if you want to do it, change that law, make it flexible, and each time they come in, it's a change to the law.
So these are requirements that were set when we originally...
When PAC was originally passed.
I would just say that 7 units per acre in a downtown district it's not gonna, you won't have senior development in the downtown district ever at 7 units per acre. Right?
On a redevelopment site.
On a redevelopment site, which is most sites. I mean, you'd only be doing conversion, you wouldn't be, no one's gonna put in 2 units on a half acre, you know? I think that's if you find a half acre size property.
Dennis, why did you pass this law? It stinks.
You know, I think what stinks is they got caught.
He goaded him into it.
I think what stinks is they came up with a good project. I don't even think we had anybody oppose
No,
the
not a
project
single
when it
person
came.
was, came out speaking
I don't know
against
about
it.
the other boards, but not
One
here.
person did, but you weren't speaking to us, you were speaking as us. What, okay, all right, so we've got one, Paul, maybe he's still a no, it seems like he's still a no. Wavering?
I think we gotta sit down with Jane and Rob and see if we can tweak it. And I'm the one who came up with this. Even though I voted against the project, I think that the law's gotta be, it's gotta be refined. But, we do got, I mean.
And I agreed with you, Tom, when you said that.
And that's
what we were
what we're
doing
trying to
here.
do. That's what we're trying to do, but like when you have the planning board from Rockland County saying it's an arbitrary and capricious when you take out, I think you do gotta, and I didn't think about it.
Well, that's why we put in the 1.25. That's what, Rob and I talked, and we threw that in there so we'd have it available right now to make sure that it was.
Tom, have you ever overrode the county planning board?
We did
We
for
did.
the first one.
I know you did.
But here's
And
what.
the answer is yes.
We did.
Here's what I'm saying. They came up with some suggestions that I think that we as a board should look at.
I think that's what's going on here.
But, I mean, you have floor area ratio, you might want to put in, I mean, the original law did have a maximum dwelling units, and maybe we address that too. I mean, not what it is right now, but like a maximum, like the floor area ratio doesn't do that. That just says floor area ratio, I wish we had gotten this about 2-3 weeks ago.
Well, that's typical of the county planning board.
Tom,
All right, Tom, do you need 2 more weeks then?
Yeah, I do.
You need 2 more weeks,
But
and then
to
you'll
see
come.
if we could come up with something that will work.
Okay.
Where are you at,
Paul?
Jared?
I don't think the flexibility, just talking to Rob, the flexibility doesn't hurt us in any way, but, if this is Tom's law, he wants 2 weeks, I think we give him 2
Well,
weeks.
I'm just trying, listen, the funny thing is I voted against it because I didn't think you had,
You voted against it because of the content of the law,
the,
more
well,
so than
the thing is, you have to have, if you're gonna vote for a PAC, I think the person's voting for it, the town board should control what the parameters are, including, or you're just voting on something and you're passing the buck along. You're passing to the zoning board, and if the zoning board doesn't want to set precedents with giving variances, then you're never gonna have a PAC in downtown Orangetown or downtown Pearl River. So why even vote for it if you're not gonna
So
take?
you're almost making the argument that we should vote for this law because then it gives us the flexibility. instead of
Exactly.
them.
But I think
And
you need
flexibility is
flexibility,
not a
but
bad
you
thing.
need maximum, like, it's not working the way it is.
like trust but verify, flexible to a limit.
But it's not working the way it is, especially since no buildings downtown have 40,000 square feet.
You physically can't do a downtown
No,
thing under the current
can't-
limits.
Right, this law isn't working, it's obvious. I mean, but there is one PAC zone that went in there, I think we did
But it was
this
a
one in Spark
redevelopment,
Hill.
yeah.
It depends.
It's a conversion, because of the way the law's written.
That's
It's,
why I
it's,
said
it's just
the
the way the
law
law's written.
That law does hit the law
The law
stinks.
stinks.
Two
Sorry,
more
guys.
weeks is not gonna kill us. Why don't you just Table it for 2
Let's
weeks?
table it
See what
2
we come
weeks.
up with and go from there.
We
But
can
let me
come-
just say this, I'm not friends with the law, but I'm gonna stick up for it, all right?
Go.
I'm just gonna say this, listen, it's written so that there are some parameters. Now, as applied, and I think I had this conversation with Tom and Chris earlier, yeah, as applied, like they're coming in with a particular project that kind of maybe exposes some flaws in the law, but it's kind of kept things, as Dennis pointed out. We've got the one at where the movie theater was, the Bertucci one, you know, a number of them, so it.
I'm
know,
glad you
it's-
have pride in authorship.
You didn't
it's-
write it.
No, I
though.
didn't write it.
You
But,
didn't write it.
I-
You don't have to defend it.
Yeah.
but I think that.
Blame it on Edwards.
I think that it, yeah, it could, based upon like this, what has come up, yeah, maybe it's worth looking at, like we're adhering to the 6 dwelling units, again, maybe in consultation with Jane or the planning board even, we could discuss, you know, increasing that.
Yeah.
22nd.
Can you work with Mr. Divity?
I can work with Mr. Divity in 2 weeks.
I don't know if I can work with this guy. He stands up for these crap.
Not for 2 weeks, over a period of 2 weeks, I think you can manage to make it work. All right, I mean, I personally would go today, but if everyone wants to wait by 2 weeks, that's fine.
No, it doesn't hurt.
I'm not gonna put you fit. All right, so we are going to, do I have a motion, what's the date of the meeting? We're talking November 20, October 22nd.
All right.
We currently have some hearings on that date. I don't forget what they are and when, so I don't want to schedule it on a time that we already have something scheduled. Yeah, it's in the, okay, yep, good point. Do I have a motion to continue the public hearing on this matter to October 22nd at 8:25 PM? So
Yes.
moved, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are continuing to 10:22.
Excuse me, I have to leave, but this has been really informative and illuminating, and I just love how there's no real infighting going on.
Thank you.
So many different town board meetings.
Thank you.
Disasters, and this is really great to be part of.
We like to get along.
We
Thank
are the
you.
best town board.
I
in town.
agree. You're not going to find anyone disputing that we are the best town board. All right, we're going to the quick portion, guys, all right? We have this, do I have a resolution to open the public hearing on Ryerson, which will then be followed by a resolution to close it? Is there a motion?
Motion to open it.
Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor?
All right, motion to
Seeing,
close.
for the record, we have had, the action was withdrawn. There's no further action required as we have no application. This is, I'm saying it during
Motion to
hearing, so
close.
it's on the record. Motion to close the public hearing, motion to close and take no further action by Councilman Divney. Second by Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. Moving on to, gosh, I skipped out of order here. That's Ryerson Estates. Hold on. Now we have that's zone change. Property maintenance. Resolution to open the public hearing for property maintenance at 38 Haram Place, which had been delayed previously. Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Batari. All in favor? Okay. Has everything been published, Rosanna?
Well, good.
Yes. Rob?
Yeah, was he served? I guess.
Yeah,
that's
was
the
he
question.
guided service this time? We got the,
Yes, we
Thing
did,
stuffed on his door.
and we have not received, we sent out a letter certified return receipt. We have not received the return receipt, but we did receive confirmation that it was delivered.
okay.
All right.
That was what was held us up last time, so.
Yeah.
I think there was someone to speak.
And there was someone to speak, if they're still here. I think she's still here. Yes? You're welcome to, we are all gonna vote for it. I'm just gonna put that out there, so if you go for
All
it.
right.
Step on up and, floor is yours. And you raise your hand first, ma'am, so you can, oh, you had a separate order. Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't sign it sheet. My bad.
My name's Kevin Reed. I have lived on Haran Place in Japan for 50 years. I have known the owner of 38 Haran Place for almost that long. In August of 2013, her son picked her up, took her out of the house, brought her down to Virginia. Previous 2 winters, he had done this, just, as a snowbird, because he didn't want his 90-year-old mother being by herself. I helped to watch the property. I took the mail, I brought the papers, shoveled out the driveway. During the summer, the landscaper, up until late 2015, would go ahead and he did all the property maintenance. He stopped at that point. He is my landscaper. When I asked him about it over the winter, he said, they stopped paying me. In the process of collecting all the mail, there were numerous cards hung on the door.
from Suez, non-payment. Suez turned off the water. In 2016, I filed a complaint with the building department about non-maintenance of property. At that point in time, the grass was only up to my knees. That time, cutting the grass would have solved the problem. Today, cutting the grass is like putting a Band-Aid on a severed artery. It's just not going to get the job done. Today, as of 2 weeks ago, when I went up and thought we were going to have this meeting, it's 17th, there are weeds on the front lawn that are 8 feet tall. There are weeds in the back of the house that are 6 feet tall. They're as tall as me. I came into 30 Huron. There were new people living there. The old homeowner who moved out in June had told me about hearing scratching at her back door. Open the back door, there's a raccoon there wanting to get in the house. Raccoon scurried back onto 38. There are raccoons, there are foxes, there are groundhogs tearing that backyard apart. It is completely overgrown. In the summer, there were swarms of insects circling in the backyard. When I was there 2 weeks ago, you could hear hundreds and hundreds of crickets scratching their legs at 1:30 in the afternoon. I think our main concern at this point is that this thing has become a disaster. I've been to the I've been to the building department. I've spoken to people from the Rockland County Health Department, and the woman I spoke to, because she didn't have contact information at that point, I gave her what I had from them, told me that she had tried to get onto the property to examine the building. She couldn't get onto the property, and from the street, she couldn't see the building. There's a car that has been abandoned. It was the husband's car. He passed away in 2011. I know there were bees in that car up to 2017, the last time I was on the property to look at it. Because in 2017, I finally gave up. I said, phone calls, emails, text messages. He wouldn't respond to anything anymore. And this is the son, not the mother. The mother's in her mid-90s. The mother would go out there when she lived in that house every single day and make sure the outside was pristine. And I don't know if any of you gentlemen have had the opportunity or the time to see that property. I've taken pictures of it. I have them on my phone. If you want to see it, I'll show them to you. It's a train wreck. From 30, looking into the backyard, there is a pigeon coop and a shed. The shed you almost can kind of see. The pigeon coop belonged to the husband. He always kept it clean. It was immaculate. There's just burrowing animals under it. You couldn't see it anymore. It's just gone. When she was taken out of the house, she used to call me for a few times. The son had, in the several weeks before that, come in, purchase groceries, pack the refrigerator, pack the freezer, pack the cupboards. The inside of the house is as bad as the outside, guys. It really is. Because nothing was paid, the O&R bill was turned off. This is 3 years back. It's hot water baseboard heating, copper piping. The Board of Health agreed with me and said, yeah, those pipes, at least one of them's probably broken by now. Those pipes break. If they break in the walls, that's black mold. That's nasty stuff. You don't want to deal with that because there's no air circulating in there at all. You've probably, at the very least, got some type of mold growing around in this thing. It's beyond being an eyesore. We've been dealing with this since late 2015. The grass is only going to be higher next year. And what ends up happening is you get to the winter, it all comes down, it all falls down. Comes the next spring, it comes back with a vengeance. We've been trying for years, imploring town agencies to help us out and do something about this. And until tonight, we just get met with frustration. The building department telling me, hey, I don't have any contact information. I gave them contact information. They came back a year later and asked for it again. Animal control told another neighbor, hey, there's nothing we can do about it. Gentlemen, please, ask yourself just one question. Would you want yourself, your family, your kids, or your grandchildren living next to this disaster? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can address that real quick,
Yeah.
which might help.
Janie, if you want to chime in, I do have a question actually that was brought up before
Yeah.
you go, sir, sorry.
And, you
Go
know, we have a number of properties in town that we're trying to deal with. Obviously, it's a horrible situation when elderly happen, move on and there's nothing we can do about it. There's a warrant out for this gentleman's arrest. It's been in court.
From
We
us.
keep, correct.
Yeah.
It doesn't go across state lines. We can't send police down there to pick them up for property maintenance issues. The proposals we received are not only for cutting the grass, they're
Yeah,
also.
that was my question.
Yeah.
What do the proposals cover, and is 2,500 enough? Because it's all going to be billed to this person anyway.
Right, trim all bushes and cut hanging branches from trees onto ground, cut all the existing grasses, weed whack the entire property of all overgrown areas, and then there is a monthly maintenance fee on each 3 proposals that we received. Now, obviously, once we can see everything, then we can make a further determination if further variances or violations need to be written, and if the town needs to take further action to maybe remove, a shed that's collapsing, or the chicken coop, thank you.
What about
I was
the
thinking
health-
bird sanctuary.
What about the health issues inside the house?
Is that something we don't do inside the houses, is the thing, right? That's
No,
health
we'd
department.
have to,
10 by the-
I think Rob could probably back me up on this, but I think we'd have to get a subpoena to go in there.
Has-
So,
Has he paid?
or search warrant, I'm sorry.
Has he continued to pay his taxes?
I actually don't think he has been.
Joe's
Yeah,
check.
I don't, yeah, I'm not sure, but I think this might be one he's not paying.
Of course, what happens is, if he doesn't pay the taxes for 3 years, then it goes to the county
Right.
delinquency, and then it goes up for auction.
Right.
Now,
And we have been using that address, but we do ask with every complaint if there's another contact, because you never know, people move. So we're always going to ask that question. If someone has additional information, we'll send letters to 2 or 3 addresses to try to find a
that's
person.
fine.
Yeah,
This is why the property maintenance law was passed,
right,
to go after, you have people maintain their houses, take care of their homes,
exactly.
and then you get somebody who just doesn't give a damn about anybody.
I'm familiar with it because my mother-in-law is their back neighbor, previous. So, we saw it happen when it started happening in 2015, and it is unfortunate, but again, we do have to take the steps, and now we're at a point where we've exhausted every avenue to get them to correct it, so now the town board can take action
And this
based
is
on our
the-
code.
And we have done this before. The town board
Not
has
often,
put
but we have.
liens on the houses,
Right,
for doing the maintenance, so this is obviously, should have been done. but
right, and
We
it,
can do it tonight.
and again, we can address the health issues as we go further, but at this point, we have to get it safe for anybody to even get on the property, number one.
You can't see what's in there until you clear it.
Right, and otherwise, I think to get entrance into the house to see it, yes, the health
Maybe
department
get the health
has,
department in there.
right, greater power to go into a house than,
And we've and that's what we did. There was a property for folks from the neighborhood in Pearl River, which had a hoarding situation. That was the most recent time we did this. It's very uncommon to get to this level. Like, I think maybe once a year is it done ever, if not less than that.
right.
But we coordinated with the health department to get them in, and they condemned, they prevented access to the home. They dealt with the health issues inside the home, but we dealt with the property issues outside the home. So the building part will coordinate. This gives them the power to do it, which they didn't have the power to get in there, because you're required to go through a whole process into court and everything. The one question I have, this is more a Rob question before we get back to the public input. If we need to do something else related to this property, that right now, the only thing the proposal is being done is related to all the exterior weed whacking, cutting bushes, cleaning up the outside. If you need to come in and get a dumpster and haul out debris or take down a thing, do we need to do another public hearing on that? Or is that just now authorized under this public hearing to do, she'd have to come in for a resolution to authorize a contract?
Well, I think if I can, with Grasso, what the board did is we had proposals, and you approved a much larger amount,
Right.
and we billed against that. So,
We could do a not to
Do
exceed.
25,000,
I
or,
think we just
Right.
put a higher amount to make
Pay the
sure we don't
max.
have to
and then,
come back here.
if you get to that number, you come back in.
right, and if there's an issue, I would come back to you.
If we let them talk.
Taxes
There
have
you
not
go.
been paid since 2013.
All right. How about we let the people who've been here for 3
yeah,
hours
no.
speak?
All right, sir? He
2013 was the last time taxes paid.
So, 2013,
it's one, it's
that
one.
should have already gone to delinquency.
Yeah, why is it not delinquency? Well, that's a whole other issue.
All right.
It might be in foreclosure.
Well, right, you have to talk to them, and you never know if they file bankruptcy, sometimes that holds it up, so
Yeah.
you don't know.
Sir, just read your name in the record and then go ahead. Sorry. Again, I really apologize for the delays. There's a lot of hearings tonight.
Tom Ferrula, moved in 30 Haran Place, the end of June, beginning of July. I have a 3-month-old son, and it's been difficult dealing with a lot of stuff in the house, coming from the other house. Majority of it is a lot of crickets. Our house is actually becoming infested with crickets, unfortunately. I also had a mole hole, or a groundhog hole, digging into the backyard on the foundation, basically. I've called, my wife and I have called several times, tried to put complaints out, anything that they could do, and it was not really much of an answer. I mean, I just want something to be done, you know, just for the well-being of my son, if anything, to be able to go in my backyard and play around with him, not have to fear for something, God only knows, rabies or something like that, I have to be worried about being attacked.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wanted to speak?
Good evening. My name is Janice Martin. I live directly across. I want you all to understand that there were many neighbors here tonight. They waited 2 hours, they had to leave. Elderly parents they take care of, school-age children, handicapped spouses, they left. This is a problem that's been going on. I started this 3 years ago, and I think my issue in anger is that you need to change the parameters. You need to figure out what has to be done. This is not the first time, through no one's fault, that they've left their property. I started 3 years ago with code enforcement. I gave all the information. I did a follow-up phone call, and the person I spoke to said, "Oh, I didn't know that." I said, "Yes, you did. I told you several months ago." Apparently, the person never took any notes, no information. Followed up again. Had a code enforcement officer come, said, "Oh, we have no way of getting in touch." I walked them down to Kevin Reed's house. Kevin gave them all the contact information. It is unconscionable that this has taken as long as it has taken. I've learned my error. My error was to talk to anybody and not put it in writing and not go through the proper channels. What Kevin said, what Tom said, it's disgusting. There are swarming insects. People, animals, anybody walking on the street. No one who pays their taxes wants to be exposed. There are resources available to find out how to get contact and do something, and in my opinion, they haven't been done. I filed a formal complaint, and I was told that I'm not entitled to know any follow-up. Not really a happy moment hearing that, since this is what we're living with. Animal control had them out. Called back, and I said, I have grave concerns. I leave for work at 6:15 in the morning. It's pitch dark. I don't know what animal I'm going to meet. My daughter leaves for school at that time. It's pitch dark. My son comes home from school at 1:15 in the morning. And the person said to me, well, you know, if you lived near the woods, you'd deal with that. I don't live near the woods. We chose to live in a development. That's not an acceptable response. We need action. My question when Jane was talking is, what provisions are made about these animals? Are you putting in to have someone come in and trap these animals? Or are the wild coyotes now going to be on our properties? How are you dealing with that? I didn't hear anybody mention that unless I misheard you. Did you mention that, Jane? About how to deal with the wild animals? Did Jane mention that about the wild animals, about trapping them?
We didn't get into wild animals. We do have animal control. It seems to me the main issue is this is a first cut at the property. It's just a big, they have to clear it, as was said, to get access to see how bad other issues are.
Well,
what wild animals are there? I doubt there's a coyote living in the actual property.
Tom has pictures on his phone of the
no,
coyotes.
I don't doubt coyotes are through the area. I'm just saying when you...
Or on the property.
I know. I'm saying they live in areas with overgrowth. They live in woods and areas that have become woods that shouldn't be, like a house
Right.
like that, right? So they would retreat to the woods theoretically. They're not gonna sit there and be waiting for someone to catch them. They just won't stay. They'll run away from the people clearing it, and then we'll have animal control available as needed.
I think if you saw the burrows on the property, you would recognize.
Jerry, yeah.
Can I just answer the question on animal control?
Please, thank you.
It goes by animal control. They do not trap and take wild animals. You can probably get a have-a-heart trap from them to take and put somewhere. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but if we add that to what we're doing for the property and get an exterminator, an outside party that can do that. So that can come in under that. But animal control in the town of Orangetown.
Oh, I know they don't. They've already been out to the property and told me
they're
they don't.
Dogs, cats, domesticated animals. Just,
Yeah, again, if we have the adjusted
yeah, we'll put it in there and just hire somebody, while the rest of it's being done, get somebody to trap it.
Okay, and is this a one-time deal, or the provisions that you've talked about?
And then do you have any other questions, first of all? Because we'll get to answer all your questions at once. I just hit pause on your time. I don't want to.
Okay.
So is there any other questions you have about the specific proposal
Um,
tonight that we can then address?
I'm sure I will when I leave here,
Okay.
and I'll write them up and submit them.
All right, thank you. So I will answer that one question. There is, Jane said, a maintenance thing going forward to continue to maintain the property, which will continue.
On a monthly basis?
On a monthly basis, is what Jane said when she was up here, correct?
Right, they provided through the growing season.
Throughout
So
the
we can revisit.
coming
We got to
season.
get estimates for next year,
In the spring.
again, unless there is a provision for a larger amount of money.
Well, we're gonna do, and your time's up right now, but I'm
I
gonna continue to
understand.
address to
Do
the
you-
points
would
you're
you-
saying.
Okay.
So we're going to increase the amount of money authorized to avoid the need for a future hearing. Then we can do it via resolution, which is a quick thing when a specific proposal is needed to address what we find. So right now, it's written as a specific proposal to authorization not to exceed $2,500. We'll amend that to include, and further additional proposals with a total spend not to exceed whatever, 10 or 15,000. 15,000, I think is reasonable, based on what we spent on the other property.
I don't really care what's reasonable.
No, I mean, based on what we spent on the other property, it's about, I think we had $15,000 cap on it. So,
Tax delinquency definitely has to be investigated.
yeah, we have to look at that. That's a whole other.
That's a whole other step that needs to be.
Who else wants to talk? Who else wants to talk?
Any of the people in the back?
You already
Well,
spoke.
people
It's
did.
only once per hearing, sir, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Technically, no. So if you want to tell someone else that we got to follow the rules, ask them to go for 30 seconds. It may not matter in this sense, but we can't set the precedent. Yes.
Again, if the board feels that $15,000 is a good amount, I do think that's definitely a good start. That'll get us through until the winter, I'm sure, with what we need to do. If we find that it's much more egregious, then I'll be back here and I'll outline that and get whatever estimates that are required to solve the issues.
And you don't need a public hearing for that in terms of increasing the estimates.
Well, I would get the estimate now. There is a process, so it needs to be addressed. Once it's addressed, we can, again, reassess and see, is it pristine and now, you can golf off of it, or you have to get to a point where it's acceptable. You don't have to let it get to the point, obviously the point it is at now before we go again, but we do have to go through the process.
We just want to make sure that there's enough, I guess, ammo in there to actually tackle the problem in this,
Well,
and get it to the level where everyone wants it at, and then if we have to do more in the future, we have to do more in the future, but we have to get it to that level. I don't know that 2,500 is going to do it.
It won't.
No, that
because-
was just put in as a guide, based upon what the estimates were, because some of them, I guess they range from about 1,000 to 2,500, and I don't know, but.
Correct, so
but then
that was,
continuing,
again.
The problem, it can't continue, and the town doesn't own the property, so
Right.
it can't just
It's to
continue.
be periodically reauthorized going forward, but we want to get it to 100%, or at least 100% of what the version we need is first. Okay.
Right, so I think that obviously the maintenance of the lawn and the shrubs and the trees and overgrown weeds is a problem right now, which we can address quickly. The other thing would be, is reaching out to exterminators, getting those estimates. and it may make sense for them to go in first. So,
You have a before we move forward, and I think we're about to, it says accept the proposal of blank dated blank. Do we have the proposals in the backup here, or is it?
Yeah, there's 3 proposals.
My internet's not working.
well, I do have the proposals, and I think the numbers were best from Edge Landscaping. But again, that only addresses the,
Right, but we're gonna do, we'll do is we'll accept this proposal 1, and then we'll authorize additional spend 2 in the same resolution.
correct, yeah.
So, yeah, exactly, so.
Because that's the language in the statute.
All right, so again, is there any public comment? Yes. We're going to finish the public comment, then we'll amend this resolution and vote on it once that's complete.
I've got a couple questions.
My name is Joe Martin from 45 Haran, right across the street from the property. Kevin wanted me to ask, and the question that he wanted to bring up was like, when they go in there, I think that they should do the extermination first because, I know, and I don't think that we had heard that before, but there's a lot, I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen the borough. You're talking like these things are not living, they're living there, these foxes and whatever, it's coming through there. And the insects and the crickets and everything, that's what everybody's really concerned about. When they go in there and start weed whacking and everything, so to your point, Jane, it's probably the right thing. I do have one question, though. There's a code that I looked up like 3 years ago about the height of the grass.
Yep.
And when my wife started going into the town, they were just like, we're sending the thing, we're sending the thing. How does that work? How does it take 3 years?
It's 100% right, because there's a property 3 doors from mine with the same 4 feet tall, 3 abandoned cars, and I'm on the town board and I can't get, satisfaction from me and my
why is
neighbors.
that?
I've had issues with the building department on how they handle it.
Oh, it's building
So
department.
it's, I don't,
Okay.
no timeout.
Okay.
No, there is a warrant out for this guy's arrest. We basically came to a screeching halt unless the town board approves spending this money to do it and leaving the property.
But they're
So
saying
we-
this is 3 years.
Well, I understand that. and
I went
it's-
on that property 3 years ago. Before Tom
Yeah.
moved there, I went in and talked to that guy. And that guy
This
couldn't
is a-
give a damn about anything, didn't give a damn
We
about his
understand
neighbors.
that, but he goes into court, especially that, when he goes into court, and what happens in the courtroom sometimes ties our hands. We understand that. This one, no one was responding. The inspector went into court and said, we're not getting a response, and put a warrant out for his arrest. We're following the law.
I think the
Now,
question
this
though
has
is,
been
why
better-
has it been this long? I mean,
Well, again, I can only answer for.
right, in your tenure, obviously, we've been fixing things
We've
lately.
been
This is the
fixing.
second hearing in a
Right.
year to change,
Exactly.
Well, I
but-
guess the frustration, and I get your frustration, the response I got from someone was, well, the code enforcement officer feels sorry for the guy that's not cutting his lawn. That was the answer I got.
Right, well,
I
that
got
was.
that answer,
And what
so I
happened?
feel
We
your
took care of it.
frustration.
This is, yeah.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's a valid point. Your time is still going.
So can we find out what the actions were taken 3 years ago when my wife put the first complaint in?
I'd love to know.
And to answer that
Does the
question,
building-
all you have to do is file a Freedom of Information request. And if anyone wants information on this property, it's all public.
To the town or to the building
town. You
department?
go into the town website, FOIL request form, click it, direct it
Okay.
to the building department,
Okay.
put all information related to 38 Aran Place. It was
Okay.
38, right?
Thank you.
38 Aran Place.
Thank you.
And you'll get everything, the entire packet on that thing from when it was
In
first built.
response to that, what was done 3 years ago at this point, where we're trying to address, we've been working with the town board to correct these issues. There was obviously a lot of them that were outstanding, and we're addressing them as we can, but we still have to follow the law. We can't go into someone's property without doing due process. That is the situation we do have. Code enforcement was doing things a little differently a few years back. We are changing that, okay?
Or not doing things.
That's
Well,
different.
again, and that has been very different in the last 2 years. We've been more aggressive as code enforcement, and we will continue to do it and hopefully solve a lot of these problems. But again, we have to follow the law, or it's going to get the town in trouble. So, again, this guy was not answering. We went into court, a warrant out for his arrest. Then the town board agreed to entertain it as far as cleaning it up.
I think that generally speaking, what everyone needs to understand is that the process can't change, the pace at which it moves can change, and it has been changing. From the 3-4 years ago, things were sitting for 3-4 years and nothing was happening. And then we had to basically backtrack, and this is not just this property, this happened to the one in Pearl River. Restart the whole process and go through and get them to court, put the violation on. Then they have to go to court, they have to not show up, they continue it, then they not show up again. That's out of our, that's just due process stuff. The question is then how quickly do we go from the moment you get that violation to compliance, whether it's in court or us eventually having to do this. That's what's had to have changed. It has gotten better. There are still properties that are not like that, that are not being dealt with yet because there's a backlog, and they should be. And I think that a lot of the decision-making under the code enforcement was poor at a certain point, where they were not, stepping up and seeing things to completion, and this is one of them. So we're gonna fix that tonight, and we're gonna move forward with it.
What's amazing to me is how did he get away without paying his taxes since
That I gotta-
2013?
we gotta
No
talk to the
one-
county
no
about
one
that.
I was gonna
took
say,
the
if the
house
tax
over.
assessor can't find them, how are we gonna find them?
Yeah, but how do they not repossess the house and auction it off so someone can buy it and fix it?
Well,
I don't know. There are ways to delay.
Rosanna, I'd like an update on that when we find that out.
My records show that taxes haven't been paid since 2013.
So that means the county's been
Then it
reimbursing
goes
us
to
since
the assessor's
2013, and
office
then it goes
find
to,
out
okay.
where they are, if it's in foreclosure.
All right. Wrote on it.
So, given where we are right now, I'm gonna go ahead, barring any other comment, I think, is there anyone else that needed to speak? Okay. We're gonna deal with the pests, and we're gonna write that into this resolution, to deal with the pests and animal management. So, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Councilman Valentine with the motion, Councilman Divany with the second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, since we're gonna be reading in an amendment, I will move the resolution to approve the proposal. I will modify the language, and be it further resolved, the town board hereby accepts the proposal of Edge Landscaping dated whatever the date on that is, incorporated by reference herein, to remedy the condition on the subject property, and further authorizes other property maintenance services as may be necessary in an amount not to exceed, for removal of vermin and other associated issues, in an amount not to exceed $15,000. And then I apologize to the clerks who will have to replay that over and over again on YouTube, but that's what the content of it is. Do I have a motion? I moved it. Do I have a second? Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we'll get that going, and Jane will move it forward starting tomorrow morning. That's it, folks, if you want to go. I'm sorry we kept so long. Okay, moving on to item number 20. Set public hearing for Habor code change proposal for November 12th.
What is this? Is this the?
I heard it's a scary law too.
This is the one that basically to regulate paint and fences in historic districts.
Why are we considering this?
Habor has come to us and has worked with Dennis Michaels, our deputy town attorneys, to write a law that allows them to sort of, in their mind, do their job a little better. We cannot consider it, but one thing that we are doing, if we do choose to consider it, one, they've spent the time to write it, but that's not necessarily a requirement that we listen. We will be notifying every single resident within a historical district.
I get
of
it, but
this.
when did we start having our land use boards writing laws?
I mean, we just had the ZBA basically propose this one.
No, they didn't write it. You're having these guys, okay.
Dennis wrote it.
I
But
don't go
they
on.
gave their thoughts. They're the one, they came to us and they said, these are things that we would need to do our job better. And we said, Dennis, can you help write this into a law for them? And he did, and then now it's available for us to either hear it or not hear it. If 3 people don't want to have a hearing on it.
I'd like to see the law.
Let's
Is
see
it in
what's
here?
Yeah, it's in here.
Let's see.
It's got one of Dennis's normal long file names.
What?
His file names are like laws into themselves.
Exactly. He obviously doesn't realize he's so lucky to be employed right now.
So essentially, the gist of it is, there's some minor textual edits where things are capitalized and better written. It gives a list of specific paint colors or templates that would fit the historic district and regulates those colors in that district.
Did they take out the dates of the houses that are governed by this? And
Are the colors in there, in that law?
In the what?
Are there colors in the law?
Yeah, they're incorporated. There's a list in the back, an attachment.
Because the Historic Board of Review, years ago, made everybody have white houses, and it drove... Oh, it's the other way around. The thing is...
No, it was Akabor.
There is-
Akabor said you could have a White House.
Oh, okay,
There is
I'm
a
sorry, it
list
was
of,
Wolf Tone.
of about 1.5 pages worth of colors that are permitted in this law as proposed.
This is saying any change in the exterior design or appearance
Of any house.
of any structure.
Within the historic district,
I don't
yes.
want to set a hearing on this. This is ridiculous.
So if you got a split level built in 1974, you now get told what color to paint it?
Are you kidding me?
That is the proposal to consider.
I will not set a public hearing on it. I just think it's ridiculous. You're gonna, any house, even if it was built in 2015, has to come in front of Habor to get approval on color of the house?
The other option, just to be devil's advocate here, is we
I
could.
can't believe you brought this forth. I mean,
I mean, listen, I'm managing people who are asking a request, and the town board is the one that considers it. I'm sorry I didn't just cut it off for you guys not to discuss it, but I thought you might want to, since it's one of our boards. We can bring this forward for hearing, but then immediately, no, we're not gonna do that part, but then there's other changes in this that actually, I think, make sense, like having an actual rule for what the colors are, as opposed to leaving completely up to their discretion when people who have those houses.
Agreed.
Half of this makes perfect sense, half of this probably doesn't. The
here's-
houses it applies to doesn't.
Any change
And we
to
could
the
even change the law before
exterior
we
color of a
said it.
structure in a historic area, or to the exterior color of any architectural feature. So if I want to paint my mailbox, I have to get a building permit.
So again,
That's what it says.
what I'm saying is that that's covered already under houses before 18. If we want to take this law, as proposed, right now, the Habor already has control over that if your house was built prior to 1918. They have basic control over these sort of things with the color, but they don't have any defined rules. So what we could do is say, Section E, which is being stricken out in this law, as proposed, is no longer being struck out. It still only applies to houses before 1918. Set the public hearing and circulate a law that has that version, where it just fixes the templates of like what colors they can choose and makes a
So
more
should
formal
we-
process.
Should we adjust it before we set the public hearing? Or
Well-
should we?
That's what I'm saying, yeah, we
Does
probably
it
should.
have to be
Yeah.
close
So
to
what we'll do is
Yeah,
we'll,
No
given the
sig-
feedback,
No major significant changes.
given the feedback now that we've discussed it, I will go back and say to them, we're going to change this and take out the part where it applies to anything in the district and keep the stuff that helps you do your job better. And then we'll put that up for a vote to put to public hearing at a subsequent meeting, the next meeting. That way we can have something that's actually worth
Do we
considering.
have architectural feature of a structure defined?
I don't know.
I think you got to define that. What is an architectural feature? So if I have a mailbox, or I have a,
I
don't know,
agree that it would have to be
garbage
defined.
cans, I got to get a permit to paint my garbage cans?
I agree that it should be defined in the law.
Tell Dennis to stop smoking.
He's amending,
So-
proposing amending
I cannot-
the existing code. What I'll have him do is circulate it to everybody. You can make changes, or, you know,
Let's do a first cut, because there's obvious things that need to be changed that everyone's on board with changing, and then we'll circulate that before the next meeting, so everyone's at least okay with what they're looking at, and then we'll send it back in. That's why we do this workshop and don't necessarily vote on everything in the first meeting.
Un-American.
I mean, anyway, we will make edits so that this could be something we can consider. We're not gonna set the public, we're gonna move on to item number 21, and we will retool that and move forward. 21, hold harmless. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Batari. All in favor? 22, South Orangetown Day Lend Assistance. Motion by Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Batari. All in favor? Gotta keep it on this side of town. Resolution to lend assistance for the Mickey Sullivan 5K in Pearl River. Motion by Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy. All in favor? Resolution to redesignate Mel Liebman Plaza for another 5 years. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy. So nice you did it twice. All right.
Mel Liebman was one of the cornerstones of Pearl River merchants. He was just a great guy.
I agree. Second by Councilman Divney. All in favor? Resolution to award bid for the demolition of those 3 old houses on Chief Bill Harris Way. Motion by Councilman Batari.
I'll second that one.
Second by
That's
Councilman
been
Troy.
laying out there a long time.
We're taking things off the list here. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Resolution to accept and receive file documents in Town Clerk's office. Motion by Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Troy. All in favor? Resolution to appoint Jane Slavin, Director of Building, et cetera, permanent, based on test results. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Tari. All in favor?
I don't know what after that if I want to get.
You had your chance to say no, just there. You missed it by like 30 seconds. Jeff with the audit.
I will certainly be quicker than the rest of this meeting. The audit for tonight's meeting consists of 2 warrants for a total of $2.1 million. The first warrant had 3 vouchers for $24,000 and was for our NIPA payment. Second warrant had 164 vouchers for $2.1 million. Items of interest, number 3, CSEA Employee Benefit Fund, $30,000 for dental benefits. Number 7, H2M, $54,000 for the Community Center project. Number 8, Indus, $136,000 for highway equipment, that's bonded. Number 9, New York City Football Club, $341,000 for escrow refund. Number 10, Department of Civil Service, $757,000 for healthcare benefits. Number 12, the Comptroller, $33,000 for justice fines. And number 14, Tilcon, $33,000 for highway materials. Any questions on the audit?
Questions on the audit?
No.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Divney. All in favor? Okay. All right, we do have an executive session. We do have 2 people to adjourn in memory of. Deputy Supervisor Mike Lawler lost his grandmother this weekend, Rose Fortino, 50-year resident of Pearl River. And we also want to adjourn in memory of Brian Mulkeen, an NYPD officer who just passed away, was killed in New York City, in the Bronx. Is there anyone else, folks, that you want to add for adjournments? So I'm going to go ahead and move that we enter executive session to discuss land sale, litigation matters, and is there some personnel matters? And that's it. Land sale, litigation, personnel, and immediately thereafter adjourn in memory of Rose Fortino and Brian Mulkeen. Is there a second? Councilman Divney, all in favor? Thank you.